On the mountain road home, we encountered a mudslide, and both my husband and sister-in-law were trapped in the car. I immediately asked. The rescuers first saved my husband, but my sister-in-law had a miscarriage due to being buried for too long. To cope with the blow, she threw herself into the river and drowned. Afterward, my husband said nothing, but when I was 5 months pregnant, and he tricked me into going to the riverbank and pushed me in, he coldly said, "You took 2 lives, how dare you think you could die peacefully?" Before I could even struggle, the icy river water took my life, giving him a second chance. I had already lost all hope in him. He wanted me to save his sister-in-law. How could I refuse his request? Just before the Lunar New Year that year, my husband ran into Shin. My sister-in-law Eden Fong and I were driving back to our hometown in the same car. We had no idea that we would encounter a severe landslide on the way. I had gotten out earlier to check the chassis and noticed something was wrong. I desperately ran over. They backed up a few steps, barely avoiding the disaster. But Knox, Shin, and Eden Fong were not so lucky. As soon as they opened the car door, they were immediately buried. When they opened their eyes again, the scene before them was filled with screams. Knox Shin had suffered a severe blow to the head. His arm was struck by a rock, leaving a bloody hole, and his arm was broken. It was truly a horrific sight. Meanwhile, Eden Fong was completely trapped in the car. Mud poured in through the windows, pressing down relentlessly. She was pinned down, unable to move. Thick snow blocked the road, and it took rescuers an entire night to reach her. Upon arriving at the scene, Eden Fong shouted from the car, "Please save me, I can't take it anymore." Despite being severely injured, Knox Shun still tried to comfort Eden Fong. "Eden Fong, don't be afraid, I'm here. I won't let anything happen to you." After saying this, he glared fiercely at me and ordered, "Zoe Lin, what are you doing? Hurry up and get them out of here. Save Eden." Looking at this man who had shared my bed for 5 years, I felt nothing but disgust and unfamiliarity. To avoid revealing any clues, I suppressed the hatred in my heart and pretended to be concerned, saying, "But darling, what do you think?" The rescue team also nodded and said, "We also recommend rescuing that person first. According to the current assessment, his injuries are more severe. If we delay any longer, the consequences will be unimaginable." After speaking, they took out their tools and prepared to begin the rescue operation. However, Nuxin panicked and shouted, "Who told you to save me first? Didn't I tell you to save her first? Can't you understand?" His roar echoed around. The rescuers were clearly displeased. Eden Fong gritted her teeth and snorted. "What kind of assessment is this? I'm pregnant, so of course you should save me first." The rescuer sighed helplessly and gave a professional explanation based on the current situation and the pressure distribution of the surrounding mudslide. Saving you first would inevitably worsen that person's situation and could cause secondary injuries. "So," he said with a worried expression, "Eden Fong, your brother has lost too much blood, and his wound is infected. I can't afford any more injuries or illnesses." Noxian gritted his teeth and said, "Stop talking, I can hold on, as long as Eden Fong is okay." He thought his selfless sense of justice would move the other party, but he never expected that Eden Fong would immediately take his words seriously and turn to run away. That's right, Big Brother is a man, strong and tough. What's a little blood or inflammation? If he says he can handle it, right? Why are you all so worried when Eden Fong says so?" Nuxin's expression instantly froze. He opened the door. He opened his mouth as if wanting to argue something, but no words came out. He looked up and saw that I was still hesitating. Noxian seemed to have found an outlet for his frustration, and his expression instantly turned cold. He said impatiently, "Zo Lin, don't think I don't know your plan. I tell you, if anything happens to Eden Fong and the child in her womb, I will make you pay." I had been waiting for these words. "Fine," I nodded. Smiling at the rescue team, I said, "Then I'll trouble you to rescue my sister-in-law first." Noxian's expression froze again. He looked at me in disbelief, not expecting me to agree so easily. Meanwhile, Eden Fong beamed with joy. Yes, hurry up and pull me out." Without another word, everyone took out shovels and jacks and began the rescue operation. The rescue team first moved, bit by bit, clearing away the loose soil and rocks around. Then they started pulling Eden Fong out of the car. However, Eden Fong was afraid of pain and was very uncooperative. She insisted that everyone clear all the mud pressing on her before pulling her out. She snorted. She said coldly, "I'm still pregnant. If you're too rough and hurt my stomach, I won't let you off." Helpless, they could only slowly remove the dirt from her, which greatly delayed the rescue time. Time passed, minute by minute. Nux Shan's face turned pale from excessive blood loss. He weakly lifted his head. He looked at me and asked, "How much longer?" I glanced at Eden Fong and said, "Eden Fong's lower body is still buried. It might be evening before we can get him properly buried." Noxon's expression grew even darker. He muttered to himself, "How could this happen? Could it really take this long? Shouldn't it only take about an hour?" My heart skipped a beat. Suddenly, I realized, perhaps Nox Shan had also been reborn in a past life. My priority was to save Nox Shan. As for Eden Fong, she had passed out from the pain, so she didn't cause any trouble, and the rescue was completed quickly. I glanced at Eden. Fong was walking toward me at that moment. She was still cursing and bossing everyone around, and I sneered inwardly. Life wouldn't be so simple from now on. Finally, after the mud covering Eden Fong's upper body was cleared away, leaving only her legs buried, she let out a long sigh. Relief, freed from the excruciating pain. She felt much more energetic, so she started complaining again about how slow the rescue was. Growing increasingly impatient, she saw everyone carefully opening the car door and gave it a forceful push. "No way, you just opened it like that. Why so slow?" This action caused a massive mudslide to pour out toward Noxon's direction. He let out a scream as his already fractured arm was further twisted by the car door. The rescuers immediately scolded Eden Fong, telling her not to act recklessly. Eden Fong looked aggrieved and mumbled, "Dude, are you really making such a big deal out of this?" she asked discontentedly. Nox Shan bit his lip and said weakly, "But I feel like I'm really at my limit." Eden Fong didn't care about him at all and instead scolded him righteously. "How can a grown man be so dramatic? Just endure a little longer. Once I'm out, won't you be able to get out too?" But before she could finish, Eden Fong's methods grew even rougher. Nox Shan's arm was twisted at a 90-degree angle, and the intense pain made him grit his teeth. He clenched his jaw. He looked up at me, his tone tinged with a hint of pleading. "Zoe Lin, I can't hold on much longer. Save me." He was asking for my help. I pretended not to understand and gently comforted him. "Darling, just endure a little longer. Hold on a bit more. You surely don't want Eden Fong and the baby in her belly to get hurt, right?" Noxon grew anxious. "But if we delayed any longer, I might really lose my life." They never expected these words to be overheard by Eden Fong. She looked in the man's direction, and her expression changed abruptly. "Brother, what do you mean by that? I'm not out yet. Are you trying to convince your sister-in-law to save you?" Nox Shan snapped back to reality and quickly denied it. "No, it's not like that." Eden Fong snorted coldly. "It better not be. If anything happens to me or the baby, I'll never forgive you for the rest of my life." Eden Fong was actually quite good at pretending. Only when her own interests were threatened did she reveal her selfish and despicable nature. Noxon opened his mouth, his face showing unprecedented pain and despair, having endured over 10 hours of rescue efforts. Both of them were taken to the hospital. Eden Fong only suffered minor external injuries and was otherwise fine. Nox Shan, however, wasn't so lucky. He was immediately sent to the intensive care unit for an emergency blood transfusion. He nearly died after being rescued, and the doctor said his brachial plexus nerves and muscles were completely severed, with muscle atrophy. He wouldn't even be able to hold a water glass in the future. For the piano professor Nox Shan, this meant the end of his career. The hospital room was dead silent. Noxon stared blankly at the ceiling, not saying a word. "That's right," I sighed and said to Eden Fong, who was getting a manicure next to me, "This time, you really should thank Nox properly. If he hadn't rescued you first, both you and the child could have been in danger." Hearing this, Noxian closed his eyes and said, "I told you, as long as both of them are safe, nothing else matters." However, his words had no effect. They didn't evoke any guilt or gratitude from the other party. Eden Fong frowned and complained, "What is there to thank him for? If he hadn't insisted on coming home so late, we wouldn't have encountered that mudslide." Why should I suffer like this because of him? Listening to Eden Fong's unreasonable words, Noxian coughed violently, looking utterly dejected. Eden Fong, how can you think that way? I chimed in. Exactly, your brother never expected something like this to happen. Moreover, he sacrificed his own future to save you. Don't you feel anything at all? Upon hearing this, Eden Fong immediately retorted, are you trying to make me feel guilty now? What happened to him has nothing to do with me. How dare you pin this on me? After all, Knox Shan is the most promising child in the Shin family. If his parents believed that Knox's disability was his fault, he would definitely face serious consequences. So, Eden Fong immediately distanced himself from all responsibility. He never imagined what consequences this behavior would bring for Nukshin. Heartbroken, his eyes instantly cleared, and his tone was filled with sorrow. Eden Fong, does all my effort mean nothing to you? Eden Fong muttered under his breath. Your disability has nothing to do with me, you were just unlucky, that's all. By the time the in-laws and brother-in-law arrived, Eden Fong had already left. The elderly couple nearly fainted upon hearing the news of Noxian's disability. My father-in-law grabbed my arm and asked in agony what had happened. I told them everything without holding back, including Noxian's insistence on rescuing Eden Fong first. My mother-in-law angrily scolded, he's such a fool. The young brother-in-law sobbed. Big brother was also thinking about the child in my wife's belly. No matter what, the future of our Shin family is secure. Pretending not to know, I comforted them. That's right, after all, Eden Fong is already 5 months pregnant. Fortunately, hearing these words didn't cause any harm. Everyone looked up at me. The brother-in-law frowned. Sister-in-law, you must be mistaken. My wife is at most 4 months pregnant. 5 months ago, I was still abroad. I looked bewildered. How could that be? Really? The doctor had just examined Eden Fong and confirmed that she was indeed 5 months pregnant. The others still didn't believe it. My mother-in-law grew cautious and suddenly thought of something, so she went straight to ask the attending doctor. After the doctor answered the phone, when the exact answer was given, the shock and anger on everyone's faces could no longer be concealed. My father-in-law was so. My mother-in-law flew into a rage upon learning that he had a heart attack on the spot and was rushed to the emergency room. Overwhelmed with grief, she beat her chest and wept bitterly. What crime has our Shin family committed to deserve such a fate? My brother-in-law was furious. How dare she betray me? She must be tired of living. With that, he stormed out angrily, looking concerned. I said, Mom, please take care of yourself. My mother-in-law grabbed me and cried. What exactly happened to Knox's hand? How could he suddenly suffer such a severe injury? I pretended to be confused. My mother-in-law only needed one glance at my expression to immediately guess that I was hiding something. She grabbed me excitedly. What happened? Tell me quickly. Tell me everything you know. I sighed and told her the whole story, including how Eden Fong had delayed the rescue efforts, emotionally blackmailing Knox Shane, and using rough and improper methods to forcibly open the door in order to obtain. She quickly drove Knox Shane out, causing Knox Shane to suffer secondary harm. Upon hearing this news, the mother-in-law was heartbroken. This despicable woman, I will definitely have her expelled from the Shin family. In the living room, Eden Fong was covered in bruises and wounds. Clearly injured, she had been severely beaten by her brother-in-law. Her face full of grievance, she complained, Mom and Dad, I really can't go on like this. He was still abusing me when I was pregnant. How can I live like this? However, her in-laws paid no attention to her. They stared at her coldly. Their icy gaze made Eden Fong increasingly uneasy. The mother-in-law snorted disdainfully and asked, Tell me, whose child is this? Upon hearing this, Eden Fong trembled all over. This child is undoubtedly a child of the Shin family, liar. The father-in-law angrily slammed the table. You've been pregnant for 5 months. Pregnant? How could it be? Knuz, get a divorce quickly. We don't want a shameless daughter-in-law like you. Hearing this, the sister-in-law turned pale. No, please don't do that. My brother-in-law is idle and has nothing to do, and he is dissolute and indulgent, addicted to gambling all day long, and has violent tendencies. Eden Fong is not a good person either. She had an extramarital affair in this life. I have been involved with many people. I carefully investigated her background and found that she had concealed her previous 2 marriages. She comes from a poor background, relying solely on two. It was only after her second divorce that she accumulated a considerable amount of wealth. At that time, she likely decided to marry her brother-in-law because of the Shin family's wealth. Perhaps after the marriage, she realized that her brother-in-law, he was a useless man, and all the family's wealth was earned by Nox Shin, so she set her sights on Nox Shin, using various overt and covert ways to show her affection toward him. I originally looked down on her. I thought someone as unattainable as Nox Shin would never fall in love with someone like her, no matter what, a person with low morals, cunning, and no substance. However, I was wrong. Not only did he deeply loved Eden Fong, but he was also willing to descend into moral decay for her. Yet, if he found out he was just another. Looking at the fish in Eden Fong's pond, one couldn't help but wonder if he would still be so loyal if he saw everyone's indifferent attitude. Eden Fong gritted her teeth and said, "The head of the family is my brother. If you want me to get a divorce, have you asked for his opinion?" Just mentioning the name Nox Shin made my mother-in-law furious. "It was you who caused his disability. Him. How dare you bring him up?" Eden Fong glared at me, her brow furrowed. "Sister-in-law, was it you who told Mom and Dad?" I shrugged. "I just told them everything I knew." Eden Fong's face flushed red. She pointed at me and shouted angrily, "I knew it was you spreading rumors." I chuckled lightly. "You cheated, yourself. It's not my fault, right?" Eden Fong narrowed her eyes darkly. "Let me tell you, I am carrying the Shin family's flesh and blood. Eden Fong is pregnant with my child." Nox Shin's voice suddenly rang out. He spoke slowly. She walked downstairs, giving me only a cold glance as she passed by, then went straight to Eden Fong. Eden Fong's face lit up with a bright smile. Overjoyed, she immediately wrapped her arms around his. Everyone was stunned. "Nox, what did you say?" My mother-in-law stood up in shock. Nox Shin straightened his back. I said, "The child in Eden Fong's belly is mine." Her brother-in-law could no longer hold back and rushed forward to take action, but was immediately stopped by my mother-in-law. My father-in-law was scolded. "This is utter nonsense. You have a wife, do you understand?" Nox Shin took a deep breath. "Mom, Dad, I know I did wrong, but what's done is done. Now is not the time for blame. We need to carefully consider what to do next." Seeing everyone fall silent, Nox Shin turned to me and said, "Zo Lin, let's get a divorce. My in-laws value family lineage." But after being married to Nox Shin for 5 years, though absurd, there was still no sign of a child. The child in Eden Fong's belly is still of Shin lineage, so they had nothing to say. Everyone's gaze turned to me. Eden Fong looked at me with a triumphant expression, showing no guilt for ruining someone else's marriage. "Sister-in-law, I didn't expect it to come to this." "You didn't expect it. In the end, the one who has to leave is you." I sneered. "Eden Fong, you really have no shame, refusing to let go of the Shin family. Are you planning to take turns with them in the future?" My words left everyone stunned. Eden Fong's face instantly flushed red, and she retorted indignantly, "What are you talking about? I will definitely divorce Chin." She glanced at Nox Shin beside her, as if declaring her loyalty. Nox Shin held her tighter, his eyes filled with love and trust. Her brother-in-law angrily rolled up his sleeves again but was met with a fierce glare from his father. My mother-in-law cleared her throat and advised me, "Good daughter-in-law, I know we've wronged you. Perhaps the two of you should divorce." My father-in-law turned his head away and snorted coldly, "Don't tell me you're blameless as a woman. Failing to win your husband's heart is itself a mistake." My brother-in-law, if you weren't so useless, if you hadn't been unable to conceive for so long, would my brother have focused all his attention on Eden Fong? If you can't even control yourself, husband, you also bear some responsibility in this matter." The situation on the field changed, and everyone started cursing at me. Eden Fong stroked her belly, looking at me triumphantly. Noxian also watched me coldly. He turned his head and looked out the window. Suddenly, I found all of this absurd and ridiculous. These were the family members I had poured my heart and soul into. For 5 years, they had been kept in the dark. They had no idea that Eden Fong had deceived everyone once again. The child in her womb was not a child of the Shin family at all. It belonged to some wealthy businessman. The only reason she clung to the Shan family was that she hadn't gotten the money she wanted yet. She needed more funds to pave her way to a higher social class through marriage. However, I had no intention of doing so. I wouldn't tell them any of this. I would watch them pay the price for their foolishness. A faint smile curled at the corner of my mouth as I pulled out a pre-drafted divorce agreement, and then I signed it. When I took out the divorce papers, everyone was shocked. Noxian was also stunned for a moment. You prepared to divorce me that long ago? I nodded. He took the agreement, and his expression turned grave. Despite Noxian's pride, he never imagined that his wife, who loved him deeply, would. This obsession would actually lead to divorce. He glared at me darkly, his expression extremely complex. I noticed it. It was somewhat comical. What, did it have to be you who filed for divorce first, and then I cause a scene? Only then would it make sense. Noxian remained silent. Eden Fong snorted coldly. At least you know what's good for you. She directly grabbed the agreement and flipped to the asset division page. Then her expression changed. You want half of the company's shares. You have quite the nerve. My mother-in-law frowned. It's only right to give you more compensation, but don't push your luck. I smiled and said, you seem to have misunderstood. I'm not asking for compensation. This half is what I rightfully deserve. Everyone's faces darkened. Noxian frowned and asked, what do you mean? I replied with a smile. When I got married, when I joined this family, the organization was facing financial difficulties. It was my dowry that filled that gap. My father-in-law snorted coldly. You only contributed 500, and now the organization's assets are worth tens of millions. Demanding half is absurd. I took out another share transfer agreement from my bag and placed it on the coffee table. The absurdity lies in the fact that you thought the $5,000 back then was a loan to the organization, when it was actually my investment. Half of these shares are under my name. Since we're getting divorced, what's wrong with me taking them back? My brother-in-law examined the documents repeatedly, his expression growing more serious. The atmosphere grew heavier. He turned to the others and said, it seems this is indeed the case. My father-in-law was simply incredulous. Who signed it? Noxian pondered for a moment. It was me. Both my father-in-law and mother-in-law were furious. You're too foolish. Noxian looked at me. He sneered coldly. Zoe Lin, I underestimated you. Thank you for the compliment. I forced a smile at him. At that time, the Shen Family Art Institute had just been established and was already facing financial difficulties. Back then, Knox Shan and I had just gotten married and were still in our honeymoon phase. Upon hearing the news, I didn't hesitate to invest the full 500,000. Knox Shan said it would be considered a loan from him. Even if the institute went bankrupt, he would still have to repay it. He was supposed to repay me, but out of concern for him, I converted that 500,000 loan into an investment. This meant I was supporting him. The Shin family shares both joys and sorrows, even if it means going bankrupt together. At the time, Knox Shin was busy with work and signed the contract without looking closely. Who would have thought that my selfless act back then would pave the way for my future? After all, the Shun family couldn't easily separate from me. Millions of dollars. I directly recovered my rightful share through legal means. Afterward, I used that money to start a new company, taking risks. Eden Fong and Knox Shin's wedding was very low-key. After all, it wasn't something to be proud of. However, Eden Fong didn't see it that way. On the day they got their marriage certificate, she excitedly posted a photo. She shared the photo on social media. In the picture, the two were snuggled together, looking very happy. Eden Fong captioned it, wishing us a lifetime of happiness. Later, she posted photos of her pregnant belly and honeymoon. Seeing that I hadn't responded for a long time, she even privately messaged me, adding 2 face covering emojis. I laughed. I couldn't be bothered to respond. However, others couldn't stay calm. The Shin family's relatives and her circle of friends were shocked. The news spread like wildfire in their social circles. Soon after, it even made local news. The headlines were varied, such as, "Woman flaunts affair and pregnancy on social media." Serving 2 brothers simultaneously sparks uproar on social networks. True love conquers all. Wife cheats with husband's brother, gains family forgiveness, successfully remarries and reaches life's peak. A woman's shocking insider story. Affair using pregnancy to force divorce. Brother's original wife forced to step aside. Public opinion grew increasingly negative, severely affecting the Shin family's school performance. Students demanded refunds one after another, and Knox Shin was even expelled from the university. I opened Eden Fong's social media feed again, only to find it had long been completely wiped clean. The elderly couple could no longer withstand the storm of public opinion and recorded a video to clarify. They insisted that their daughter-in-law and son were legally married and urged everyone not to be misled by marketing accounts. Afterward, before the situation finally settled down, we spent a great deal of money and effort. My best friend came to my office and joked with me, with a smile, "Your ex-husband's family has been completely ruined by that woman. Even I feel satisfied watching it. How can you stay so calm?" I didn't even look up, just flipped through the documents, stay out of it and enjoy the show as a spectator. My best friend gave me a thumbs up. "You really know how to handle big things." I smiled without saying a word. After all, this was just the beginning. The show I wanted to see was far from over. A few months later, Eden Fong gave birth smoothly. I saw it on her social media. The baby weighed 7 pounds 5 ounces and had finally arrived. It was a chubby baby boy. "Mom misses you so much." Even Knox Shin, who rarely uses social media, made a rare post. He shared some photos capturing the special moments. In the pictures, Eden Fong was holding the baby, with the elderly couple standing on either side. Everyone was smiling, filled with joy. The second photo showed the baby's tiny hand tightly gripping his finger. The scene was truly beautiful and touching. He captioned it, "Today, my beloved wife gave birth. I finally understand the meaning of cherishing. I vow to protect my wife and child for a lifetime and never let them down." I liked his post. The real highlight was what happened next. One evening, my psychic best friend suddenly called me. Something big had happened in the Shin family. At that moment, I had a vague feeling. What exactly had occurred? My best friend, as if she had just heard some shocking gossip, excitedly said, "Eden Fong, they took all the Shan family's money, sold off their assets, and fled with the children." I sneered inwardly, just like I had expected it. My best friend continued, "Your ex-father-in-law suddenly flew into a rage, and it affected his heart. He was rushed to the ICU. There were rumors that his condition was critical, but he couldn't afford the treatment." The entire Shan family was looking for Eden Fong. Really? The corner of my mouth lifted slightly as I replied casually, as if suddenly remembering something. My best friend warned me, "If Knox Shan can't borrow money, do you think he'll come to you? No matter what, don't soften your heart." I smiled faintly. "Don't worry, I'm no saint." Just as my best friend had predicted, 2 days later, Knox Shan finally couldn't hold back and called me. His voice was noticeably weary. "Zoe Lin, how have you been lately?" "Lately?" I rolled my eyes and replied impatiently, "I'm busy, get to the point." Knox Shan on the other end seemed a bit awkward. He was silent for a long time before speaking up. "Can I borrow some money from you?" Knox Shan has a strong sense of pride, and has always been he cares a lot about face. If it weren't for desperation, he would never have come to ask for help. However, I'm no saint either. I've always been merciless toward traitors. What's more, he caused the death of me and my child. This is an unforgivable hatred that can never be erased. I sneered coldly. "Come to me to borrow money? Are you joking?" "No," she pleaded urgently. "Zoe Lin, please help me. Eden Fong is a professional scammer. She took everything from me, our family's money. I'm now penalized and don't even have a place to live." "What does that have to do with me?" Knox Shan's voice trembled with tears. He continued, "I know you hate me, but you can't deny that you still love me. Please help me through this, and after I find Eden Fong, once we get the money back, we can reconcile." I suddenly burst out laughing. "Knox Xin, you're really narcissistic, aren't you? I won't accept trash like you. Even if you're free, you have the nerve to come begging for my help. Dream on, you bastard." My retort left Knox Shan speechless. It's easy to imagine how humiliated and embarrassed he must have felt at that moment. After a long silence, he finally spoke slowly. "It's been 5 years. I don't believe you have no feelings for me at all. You can't fool yourself. You're just waiting for me to lower my head." And then, a heavy sigh came from the other end of the phone. "Zoe Lin, you win." I sneered. "Ivy always wins. Get lost. Don't come looking for me again." The other party gritted their teeth. "Ivy has already humbled herself. What more do you want? Just lend it to me." I hung up before he could finish speaking. Knox Shan immediately sent me a message. "Zoe Lin, you'll regret this later." I heard from my best friend that Knox Sean had to stop treatment because he couldn't afford the ICU fees. Last night, his father passed away. When the company opened, my brother-in-law and mother-in-law brought my father-in-law's body over, trying to make me feel guilty. She tearfully accused me of refusing to lend a hand in a life-or-death situation. They emphasized that the divorce settlement had given me a large sum of money, yet, when trouble came, I didn't contribute a single cent. Everyone exchanged glances. Looking bewildered, my brother-in-law acted tough, as if he wouldn't leave. Without getting the money, I calmly emphasized that all the divided assets were registered in my name, with written records in black and white, and I hadn't taken a single penny from them. Moreover, I exposed the improper dealings between Knox Xian and Eden Fong. Public opinion shifted dramatically, and upon hearing my words, everyone began discussing fiercely. Isn't this the news that broke a while ago? I didn't expect all of this to be true. Wow, the Sean family is really despicable. Their son cheated, drove away his ex-wife, and now they're doing this. They clearly lost everything to a scam, yet they still have the nerve to blame her. My goodness, how dare they? They really have no shame. The crowd was filled with righteous indignation, with curses flying around and even some people raising their phones to record. My mother-in-law and brother-in-law became the targets of public criticism and fled in panic. Not long after, my mother-in-law fell ill. The Sean family tried every means possible and finally found Fong Eden. By then, she had already married into a wealthy family. It said that Knox Sean was extremely emotional and made many demands. He demanded that Eden Fong return all the embezzled money and the child. However, Eden Fong firmly denied it and even presented a paternity test report proving that the child she gave birth to was the offspring of the wealthy man and had no relation to Knox Xian whatsoever. Knox Xian couldn't bear such a blow and was nearly driven mad with anger. In the end, he was roughly thrown out by the bodyguards. I thought this matter should have ended unexpectedly. My brother-in-law later managed to steal the child and demanded a large sum of money from Eden Fong, threatening to kill the hostage otherwise. Eden Fong and the wealthy businessman immediately reported it to the police. During the police pursuit, the brother-in-law accidentally dropped the child, causing its death, and he himself was shot dead on the spot by the police. Eden Fong lost her child, and the scandal spread far and wide. Concerned about his reputation, the wealthy man kicked her out of the house. After being driven out, she left. Eden Fong indulged herself, living in a drunken stupor day after day. In the end, she was caught by Knox Sean in a casino. Knox Sean had been driven to bankruptcy by her, losing everything he had. He lost his family and wealth, and long ago lost the will to live. All he wanted now was to kill Eden Fong to vent his hatred. In the end, he succeeded but was also sentenced to death. The day before the execution, he called me, his tone filled with resentment. Laughter came from the other end of the phone. I didn't know who else I could see, so I called you. Zoe Lin, will you see me? Hang up. In the end, I didn't refuse. There was no need to argue too much with a dying man. I sat on the other side of the iron bars. In the bar, he looked at him. After just a few months apart, he had become haggard and unshaven. No trace of his former self remained. The pride and arrogance of the past were gone. Knox Sean was also looking at me, his eyes filled with undisguised surprise and sorrow. Zoe Lin, you've changed so much, I replied calmly. So have you. His lips trembled, and his voice choked. I was wrong, terribly wrong. I was blinded and destroyed our lives with my own hands, destroyed all those beautiful days we once had. Only now do I realize that the one who truly cared about me was you. Yet, I've lost everything, he confessed again and again. However, there is never a way to cure regret in this world. Knox Han looked at him coldly, as if looking at a stranger. What's done is done. This is the path you chose. All red. Yes, I deserve it. The one I owe the most is you. I clenched my fists. You owe more than just me. You owe my child as well. Knox Sean trembled all over, looking up at me in disbelief. Zoe Lin, you've come back too. His face was filled with pain and remorse. Perhaps recalling what he had done to me, he didn't dare look up, just kept muttering. He said he didn't know I was pregnant. It was only discovered during the autopsy. In extreme agony, he slit his wrists. However, I still remember, when I fell into the river, the last thing I saw was his indifferent gaze. I ignored his cries and turned away. those tears, those confessions, were nothing more than crying for himself. His remorse was only that he came because the outcome was unfavorable to him. The so-called confession was merely an attempt to ease his own conscience. I will no longer linger for him. I will stride forward with my head held high, toward my new life, never looking back. This is the second article. After the abortion, we became strangers and never saw each other again. My mother-in-law passed away after being bedridden for over a decade, and I lost the last value in my life. In my 60s, I was driven out of the house by my husband and son and sent to a nursing home. All of this happened because, when I was young, my husband said that a woman's greatest achievement is her family. Therefore, at the peak of my career, I gave up the overseas assignment offered by the company and stayed home full-time to take care of my family. My mother-in-law was bedridden, and she took care of her until the very end of her life. She also meticulously tutored my son, helping him get into a prestigious university. At the time, I didn't know that Ezra Jiang's childhood sweetheart, Lena Ji, had long been playing the role of Mrs. Jiang in the company. Their son had already accepted their relationship, only I was kept in the dark, foolishly pitying her, treating her like a lonely, helpless girl, treating her like a younger sister. How pitiful, how ridiculous. Fortunately, even heaven thought I had been wronged and gave me a chance to be reborn, when I received an email from the company, notifying me to send someone to expand the Malaysian market. The life I had lived over the past few decades flashed through my mind. My thoughts were like a fleeting dream. Yes, no one knows I have been reborn. It seems even heaven couldn't bear Clear's throat, watching this, and decided to give me another chance to choose. Without hesitation, I clicked confirm and sent the email back to HR. I got the pregnancy test report from. I opened the drawer, tore it into pieces, and threw it in the trash. Then I opened my phone and made an appointment with that doctor. After my last pregnancy, I planned to terminate it this weekend. In this life, I will never have a child with Ezra Jiang from my past life again. This child was my gift to Ezra Jiang for our first wedding anniversary, because when we first got married, he gently held me in his arms. Mila, let's have a child together, a child that carries the blood of both of us. We watched them grow up slowly, just like our love. At that time, my career was just starting, and the opportunity to be sent to work abroad was extremely rare. My boss was a strong woman who believed in my abilities and overruled all objections. She decisively gave the opportunity directly to me. However, I let her down, giving up at the last moment, just like that, because the night before, Ezra Jiang hugged me from behind, resting his chin on my shoulder, saying he didn't want to give up our first child like this. He said that with a child, our family would be complete. Work opportunities would come later. He might even come back in the future, but if we gave up this child, the next one wouldn't be him. At 12 weeks pregnant, my morning sickness became so severe that I couldn't eat anything. Even drinking a small sip of water would make me vomit. My weight also dropped rapidly. My blood sugar fell from 100 to 90, and I could only rely on hospital injections of nutrients and 4 drips to sustain the pregnancy. In this condition, I couldn't work normally and had to take a long leave, handing over my work to my assistant. My mother stayed with me in the hospital during my difficult pregnancy, and we finally welcomed our baby boy at 38 weeks, Zhang Huiding. As soon as she heard I had given birth to a son, my mother-in-law, who had been pretending to be sick, rushed over. She came from her hometown to the city to take care of her first grandson, bringing along Lena Ji, the daughter of Ezra Jiang's aunt. Ezra Jiang doted on this younger sister, saying she was an orphan with no one to rely on, which was truly pitiful. From now on, he would be her support. I sympathized with Lena Ji for losing her parents at a young age and treated her like my own younger sister, always buying her things. Whenever I bought clothes or cosmetics for myself, I would give some to her. I never imagined back then that she and Ezra Jiang weren't actually cousins, but they were childhood sweethearts who grew up together. My mother-in-law had lived in the countryside for many years and didn't understand modern scientific parenting methods, even though I tried my best to accommodate her. Conflicts were inevitable. To avoid escalating conflicts, I always communicated with her. Ezra Jiang hoped to persuade his mother. At first, he patiently comforted me, saying that it's difficult for the elderly, he had embraced modern ideas and urged me to be more tolerant and less nitpicky. Later, after many discussions, he emphasized how hard his mother had worked to raise him and how much suffering she had endured, now that she finally had the chance to enjoy city life with her son. She had also sacrificed so much for it, so he asked me not to be so critical. Eventually, the conversation shifted to how hard he worked to support the family, while I couldn't even handle household chores properly, and he began to question the meaning of his own existence. During that period, I had been unemployed for 2 years due to company layoffs, which coincidentally overlapped with my child's birth date, the junior high school entrance exam. I decided to devote myself fully to tutoring my child and planned to look for a job after the exam ended. Just as my son had finished the junior high school entrance exam, the exam unexpectedly concluded. My mother-in-law fell ill. Mr. Ezra Jiang said that because my mother-in-law was elderly, he wasn't comfortable leaving her alone in the hospital with just one caregiver. Since the exam was over and we weren't short on money, he suggested that he handle external matters while I took care of household chores, and he advised me not to rush into finding a job so that I could have more time to care for her in the hospital. Later, my mother-in-law's condition worsened. She became bedridden, and my son Jiang Huiding was preparing for the college entrance exam. The situation grew even more challenging. I couldn't return to work because I needed to stay home to care for the elderly and the child while also filling out college applications. I asked my son what his plans were. He said he wanted to study finance, wanting to become as successful as his father, not like me, who stayed at home as a parasite for a lifetime. After that day, I spent the entire afternoon I don't know whether the choices I made over the years were right or wrong. Back then, Ezra Jiang had already resigned to start. He had his own business, and his career was thriving. He came home later and later, and every time he got drunk at social events, it was Lena G who brought him back. I knew Lena G had always been working with Ezra Jiang, but I never visited his company. Whenever I suggested going, he always made excuses to refuse. Over time, I stopped caring. At the age of 55, after my mother-in-law's funeral, I felt a sense of relief and planned a trip to Europe with Ezra Jiang. As someone who loves traveling, the worst part is that I can't even remember the last time I went out to see the world. It had been over 10 years. My mother-in-law was bedridden with a serious illness. Out of love for this family, I willingly trapped myself within these 4 walls. The prison became my long-term home, but then my son came to me and said, "Mom, Mingming is pregnant. Now that grandma is gone, you don't have much to do. Come help us take care of Mingming and the baby. Mingming is my wife." Hearing this, I was about to become a grandmother, though a bit disappointed. Since I couldn't go through with the travel plans with Ezra Jiang, I packed my bags and went to my son's house. As Ezra Jiang said, traveling, there will be plenty of time later, but the most crucial years are the early years with your grandchild. Once they grow up, you can travel wherever you want. While taking care of my daughter-in-law and grandchild, I tried my best to be a reasonable mother-in-law, always prioritizing my daughter-in-law's interests. Even when conflicts arose between my son and daughter-in-law, I always took my daughter-in-law's side. But just after I finally raised my grandchild, while my son was still in elementary school, he wanted to send me to a nursing home. Looking at the son I had worked so hard to raise, my heart felt as if it were being cut. "Your father and I are both fine. Even if you don't support us, we don't need to go to a nursing home." My son, Jian Huiding, rolled his eyes impatiently. "Dad is getting older, and he should have his own life. You can't be selfish and keep him tied to you forever." It was only then that I realized that while I dutifully cared for my mother-in-law at her paralyzed bedside, in the hospital, Lena G meticulously took care of my son's meals and tutored him at home. She gradually transformed from Ezra Jiang's assistant to his right-hand woman, remaining single and childless for over 20 years for his sake. How ridiculous! I even once considered introducing Lena G to my son, a university professor who had just returned from studying abroad. What did Ezra Jiang say at the time? He said, "Lena has her own ideas. She's not like you. She's ambitious. You just focus on taking care of the household and don't meddle in other things." At the time, to repay the debt he owed Lena G, Ezra Jiang didn't. Although he only gave her 10% of the company's shares, within the company, she was already tacitly acknowledged as Mrs. Jiang, meanwhile, the legitimate Mrs. Jiang, was hidden at home and had long been completely forgotten. Hearing my son's accusations against me, along with the injustices and hardships he and his father had endured with Lena G over the years, made my heart feel as if it were being torn apart. In the end, my son stood coldly at the entrance of the nursing home and said, "Don't worry, you are my mother, and no matter what, I won't abandon you. But Dad is different. He has worked hard all these years, and he has the right to pursue his own happiness. Only an equal relationship can be called love. Since I have been reborn, I must seize this second chance. Heaven, in this life. I will no longer live for anyone else." After returning home from work, Jiang Yisela still hadn't just been there. Just like in my previous life, recently he had some conflicts with a leader at the company again. To avoid giving the other party any opportunity, he used his advantage to work overtime late every day. I called my good friend Zhu. "Are you free tomorrow? Come with me to the hospital." Before entering the operating room, Zhu held my hand and asked, "Mila, are you sure you want to do this? Are you really not going to tell Jiang Yisela?" "No need, I will give him the divorce papers before I leave." I don't know why I was still so gentle with him back then. Just a few days ago, I was still with Ezra Jiang, but today I suddenly had to go for an abortion and then break up. However, as my best friend, no matter what decision I made, she supported me. Lying on the cold operating table, I carefully felt the pain beneath me. I want to firmly remember this pain. I will never repeat the mistakes of my past life again. Yesterday, my boss told me that the overseas assignment was a done deal, and I must report back to Singapore within 2 months at most. Before leaving, I need to handle some personal matters. I had already taken care of everything beforehand. I took a week off at Zhu's house to recover. Ezra Jiang only called me once on the first day. When he found out I hadn't returned home yet, I made up a random excuse to brush him off. After that, he never asked about me again. It seems that the first child Ezra Jiang always talked about wasn't actually that important to him. After all, the pregnancy was still in the early stages, and my physical condition was good. By then, I had mostly recovered. I went back to work on Monday. At that time, there were 45 days left before I left Magic City. Jiang Yisela sent me a text message. "Mila, my mom's birthday is coming up. Help me pick out a gift and try to send it over this week." Thinking back to the last record, it was a month ago, when it was his boss's birthday, and he asked me to help choose a gift. I sneered. It was the same in my past life, from the beginning of our acquaintance, whether it was my mother-in-law's birthday, holidays, socializing with relatives back home, or fulfilling social obligations with colleagues and superiors. Every time it was just Jiang Yisher giving orders, and I handled everything. However, in front of my mother-in-law and relatives, after returning home, I never received a word of thanks. They only praised Ezra Jiang for his filial piety and his colleagues and superiors for recognizing his actions. Back then, I always thought we were like a couple, like one person. I didn't mind outsourcing his filial duties and social obligations because I was good at them. I just did it. But later, all these household responsibilities naturally became my sole responsibility. I replied with, "Okay," and then ignored the other party, focusing on my work. After taking a week off, the piled-up work returned. Before going abroad, I needed to handle things in an orderly manner to earn my boss's trust. When I returned home, everything was already arranged, working overtime until late. As soon as I opened the door, I saw Lena G wearing an apron, holding a bowl of soup from the kitchen, while Ezra Jiang was sitting on the sofa with his eyes closed, resting. Lena G didn't disturb him. Instead, she placed the soup bowl on the coffee table beside him and then skillfully massaged Jiang's temples with gentle movements. What a warm scene. TSK, what a pity. The mistress of this house is now me. Awakened by the sound of me changing shoes, the two finally noticed my presence. "Mila, why are you back? It's not what you were just thinking." I looked at Ezra Jiang expressionlessly. "What? Can't I even return to my own home? What on earth do you think I was thinking?" Lena J nervously twisted the apron on her body, tears welling up in her eyes but refusing to fall. "Brother Ezra, perhaps I should go explain to your wife." Ezra Jiang looked at me with displeasure, his eyes filled with disappointment. "Mira, Lena is my aunt's daughter. How could you have such filthy thoughts?" I took off my coat and changed into slippers at the door. From the moment I entered, I had been standing with my arms crossed over my chest. I only said one thing: I don't understand what's so dirty about this matter. Lena G., ashamed and indignant, tore off her apron, her face full of shame and anger. It's all my fault. I shouldn't have. I offered to make soup for brother Ezra because I saw he had been working overtime lately and not eating well. I'm sorry for disturbing you, sister-in-law. I'll leave now. Ezra Jiang opened his mouth to stop her but ultimately said nothing, watching Lena G flee in panic like a frightened rabbit, even nearly putting her shoes on the wrong feet. I struggled to hold back a laugh. In my past life, how did I not realize she was so good at playing innocent and deliberately slammed the door with a loud bang. The door closed with a thud. Ezra Jiang finally couldn't take it anymore. Are you satisfied now? He snapped. I ignored him. Then I went to the kitchen to heat up some milk for myself. This time, Ezra Jiang started shouting, even yelling, my name is Mirishan. Don't you realize you're about to become a mother? How can you still come home so late from work? Just like in my past life. Whenever Jiang made a mistake, he would always find something else to criticize me for. The way he spoke to me made me feel guilty and sad. It seemed that by doing so, he could maintain an advantage between us. He kept a good relationship with her, while his own minor mistakes were brushed off as if nothing had happened. I didn't want to confront him just yet. After all, he still owed me a sum of money. Once I sorted everything out, we would settle these accounts together. Perhaps sensing that I was different from before, Ezra Jiang, unusually, didn't aggressively push me to back down. Instead, he gently wrapped his arms around me. I lay on the bed, and he spoke from behind. Mira, you don't know, my aunt and uncle passed away early, and Lena is their only daughter. I treat her like my own sister. I gently pushed his hand away. My stomach felt a bit heavy. Seeing this felt very uncomfortable. I didn't take the chance to retreat. Ezra Jiang no longer tried to coax me and soon turned his back to me, falling asleep in the dark. I opened my eyes. So Lena G had come to the Magic City this early. Ezra Jiang and the others really took good care of her. Dark, ever since Ezra Jiang's former supervisor was transferred, he hadn't been getting along with his current one, so he wanted to start a business, but starting a business requires money. In my past life, I supported him. Not only did I spend all my savings, but I also helped him borrow money from friends and family, including my mother's 1 million yuan pension. Without my help borrowing money, it's hard to say whether Ezra Jiang's company could have even started. Unlike me, Ezra Jiang came from a rural background, the golden phoenix that broke free from its cocoon and his family. It was surprising enough that others didn't ask him for money, let alone lend him money to start a business. But this was no longer my concern. I needed to find a way to get Ezra Jiang to withdraw the money he had invested in the stock market. After all, this was our shared property. As for this house, initially, my mother sold an old small apartment to help with the family expenses. To show sincerity, he paid the down payment. Ezra Jiang offered not to put his name on the property deed. Therefore, the mortgage is only in my name. Over the past 2 years, the mortgage has basically been paid using my housing provident fund. He didn't leave a single trace. For simplicity, we bought a fully furnished apartment, and after moving in, when we came in, we added some furniture and appliances. At the time, Ezra Jiang said, many couples argue over the renovation work, but he trusted my taste, so most of these things were bought with my own money. If there's anything Ezra Jiang spent money on in this house, it was probably for that high-end sound system and coffee machine. After all, those were his 2 favorite things. Back then, I thought I had found a husband who didn't like to worry about things. I was deeply moved by that thought. For a long time, I believed it. Now, I really want to slap myself hard. So, for me, secretly selling this house isn't too much. That's right. In the following days, I was busy wrapping up projects at hand, completely overwhelmed. Just before getting off work, my boss specifically instructed something: save me some dinner and coffee. Mira, you're leaving in a month. No need to work so hard. Stop dragging me down. My back hurts. Annie, I don't want people talking about you after I'm gone. Only these are left. It's over. It'll be over in a few more days. Unexpectedly, Ezra Jiang, who had been ignoring me all along, actually came to pick me up from work. Today, It's truly a rare sight. When I arrived, I walked into the garage, saw Lena G sitting in the passenger seat, couldn't help but raise an eyebrow, then opened the back door and got in, seeing I was holding coffee, and Ezra Jiang glanced at me through the rearview mirror. Mira, you're pregnant, you should resign. For now, just drink coffee. It's not good for the baby. I pretended not to hear and lowered my head to look at my phone. Lena G, sitting in the passenger seat, suddenly spoke up. Is it because I'm sitting in the front that sister-in-law is upset? Maybe I should switch seats with her. That's what she said, but she herself sat there motionless, not even making a move to unbuckle her seatbelt. Buckle up. Before Jiang Ezra could speak, I lifted my head and replied, no need, it's safest here, I'm fine, sit here. Lena G's eyes instantly lit up. Sister, are you still upset about what happened that day? Ezra and I grew up together, we did these things together, and I'm used to it. It was my fault for not noticing your feelings. If you mind, she won't see Ezra anymore. Ezra Jiang quickly spoke up to comfort her. Your sister-in-law is pregnant, just let her be. Sit in the back. Didn't I already tell you that your sister-in-law isn't the petty type? Mira, Lena G bit her lip, her gaze sharp as she stared at me. She looked like she wouldn't give up until I nodded. I didn't want to listen to the hypocritical conversation between these two, so I interrupted. Ezra Jiang, how are the stocks we bought? Can they make money? Why did you think to ask about that? Our company recently plans to allocate some shares to employees, and I was thinking, by some, as you know, our company has been performing quite well lately, and there's a big discount right now. Internal purchase. Ezra Jiang studied finance, so a small portion of our family savings is with me, while the majority is managed by him. He glanced at me through the rearview mirror and asked, how much are you planning to buy? I looked at Lena G sitting in the passenger seat. Before the words were out, Lena G's eyes instantly turned even redder, like a rabbit with conjunctivitis. Jiang Enda glanced at her and said bluntly, Lena is one of us too, no need to hold back. Hearing this, Lena J, she immediately displayed a girlish shyness, and the look she gave me was filled with undisguised pride. I pretended not to notice and said casually, I might have about $1 million in the stock market right now. Give me half first, maybe considering I'm pregnant, or just wanting to make things easier for me, our relationship. Ezra Jiang nodded in agreement, but later I realized, I still overestimated him too much. The reason Ezra Jiang agreed so easily was, first, because our company's stocks are indeed profitable, and second, because they wanted me to help Lena G find a job at the company. Before getting the money, I naturally pretended to agree, then immediately deleted Lena G's resume. Just an ordinary bachelor's degree, no special skills, and no impressive work experience. Without connections, you simply can't get into our company. I contacted a reliable agent. He previously told me he already had a potential buyer, but the buyer wanted to see the house first before deciding. I tried hard to recall the past situation. According to Ezra Jiang, it seems he has a short business trip planned this weekend. I'll arrange everything, move out, and sell the house at the same time. I quickly bought this house. I offered the agent a price several $1,000s below market value. Moreover, when I bought it, this apartment had the best floor, orientation, and layout in our entire complex. I'm confident the buyer will make a decision immediately after viewing it. Sure enough, after we got home that evening, Mr. Jiang mentioned his upcoming business trip. I seized the opportunity to remind him about purchasing company shares and suggested he transfer the money to me by this Friday at the latest. During this period, every time Ezra Jiang drank and couldn't drive, Lena G would bring him home. At first, she would act a bit awkwardly, and Ezra Jiang would offer a few explanations, but after a few times, both of them simply ignored me. Of course, I didn't care either. That day, the bag Lena G placed on the shoe cabinet gave me a sense of déjà vu. Noticing a small scratch near the bottom of the strap, I suddenly remembered, this was the bag Ezra Jiang had gifted me when he received his first year-end bonus, a medium-sized LV Neverfull Classic handbag. Once, I took this bag to my cousin's house, and her child accidentally scratched it with something. Since then, it had been gathering dust in the cabinet. Seeing me staring at the bag lost in thought, Lena G pretended to be shy and said, I told brother Ezra I couldn't possibly use such an expensive bag, but he insisted. A bag is a woman's second face. Having a beautiful bag ensures you won't be looked down upon. At work or in social settings, her eyes were filled with undisguised pride and provocation, even more intense than before. I simply said, "Oh," and walked away to the bedroom, leaving Lena G alone in the living room to deal with the heavily intoxicated Ezra Jiang. Once in the bedroom, my first priority was to check my valuables. Thankfully, aside from the LV bag, everything else was intact and still in my possession. If Ezra Jiang dared to give away any of my treasures as gifts, I'd go out and tear him to pieces right now. As with previous occasions, Lena G settled Ezra Jiang in the study, which suited me just fine. Tomorrow was Friday, and I urged Ezra Jiang to transfer the money to me as soon as possible. It was the final deadline for the company to complete the share purchase. In the afternoon, the payment came through. Seeing over $1 million deposited into my bank account, I couldn't help but feel ecstatic. I recalled that over the years, the total amount I had contributed to Ezra Jiang was less than $800. I never imagined I could earn this much. Although Ezra Jiang himself might have invested a significant portion, it was, after all, marital property, so I accepted it with a clear conscience. On Saturday, as I watched Lena G busily helping Ezra Jiang pack for his business trip at home, I sat on the sofa browsing travel guides. With the house matter settled, my work at the company was also mostly complete. I planned to take my mother on a trip to Europe before heading to Singapore. "Mira, do you have anything else for Ezra?" "That's all." "Then what should we do?" "I don't think any of these ties go well with Ezra's linen suit. Let's change his outfit." Lena G walked out of the closet with a displeased expression, voiced her thoughts, and then entered the study where Ezra Jiang was handling some matters. "Ezra," she said, "I think you're too frugal, no matter how you look at it. You're a director at a major company. Just look at the outdated clothes and ties in your closet. It's really embarrassing to attend business meetings like this." Her voice wasn't deliberately lowered. It was just loud enough for me to hear clearly from the living room. Ezra Jiang's suits are all classic styles I had custom made at brand boutiques. Whether it's the material or craftsmanship, they are top-notch, and the price is much higher than the ready-made ones hanging in department stores. As for ties, each one is a carefully selected designer piece that perfectly complements his outfits. How could they possibly be embarrassing? Lena G, does she really think carrying a second-hand LV bag makes her taste superior? I'm curious what Jiang told her to get Lena G so worked up. I saw her put a pack of pure white cotton socks into Ezra Jiang's suitcase, then walked out of the study with a gloomy expression. The corner of my mouth involuntarily twitched upward. Such refined taste. Truly one of a kind. Before leaving, Jiang Ezra sat down beside me. "Mira, when I return from this business trip, can we talk?" I glanced at Lena G behind him, who looked nervous, eavesdropping with perked ears. "All right, we'll talk when you get back." Jiang Ezra hesitated. "The doctor said, Mira, a pregnant woman's emotions greatly affect the condition and the child's future personality. I don't want you to be unhappy." "I'm not sad. I'm fine. Don't worry about me. How about I bring my mother to take care of you? I've heard the later stages of pregnancy can be tough." "There's no need for such trouble. My mom said she would come to take care of me." After repeated urging from Lena G, Ezra Jiang finally left home with her. I dragged the suitcase and immediately called my best friend Zhu Su, asking her to help me move and promising to treat her to a meal. Zhu Su had praised Ezra Jiang several times before, but after learning about Lena J's existence, she firmly opposed my perspective. She even declared that if I really couldn't find a buyer, she would buy the house herself to minimize my future entanglement with that jerk. Over the weekend, after the agent showed the house to potential buyers, one of them was very satisfied and wanted to pay the deposit on the spot before receiving the earnest money. I frankly told them that the house was my premarital property and that I was selling it below market price because I was getting a divorce. Although the transaction was legally fine, I couldn't guarantee there wouldn't be other issues. If they were worried about potential future problems, I completely understood. The buyer was purchasing the property for investment rather than personal use and assured me they didn't mind as long as the property was legally compliant. Honest people are always efficient. After signing the contract, they generously advanced me a portion of the payment to ease my financial pressure. According to the normal procedure, after my house's mortgage is cleared, the transfer would take 15 working days to complete. The bank was the same, but I couldn't wait that long, so I used a friend's connections to expedite the application process. On Wednesday, Ezra Jiang returned from his business trip and found he couldn't open the door. He called to ask what happened. I told him the water pipes at home had burst, flooding the house, which needed repairs, so I had to stay at Zhu Su's place for a few days, and he would have to figure out his own accommodation. I initially thought Ezra Jiang would be angry, but to my surprise, he simply replied, "Got it," and hung up. Even with an expedited application, the property transfer still took 5 working days to complete. During this time, I was indeed always absent-minded, worried that something might go wrong. What you fear most will eventually happen. In my previous life, when I was pregnant, my mother-in-law used her poor health as an excuse and didn't come to Shanghai until after the child was born. This time, it's a miracle that she actually took the initiative to come to Shanghai to take care of me. Ezra Jiang originally wanted me to pick her up. He got up, but I said I was busy and told him to figure it out himself, just as I expected. In the end, it was Lena G. Since we had no space at home and my mother-in-law refused to stay in a hotel, we went to pick her up. Ezra Jiang had no choice but to arrange for her to stay at Lena G's apartment in Shanghai. Upon learning that Lena G lived in an apartment in a fairly good location, Zuhu thought, running around like this, can Lena G afford such an expensive place? I guess it was given by that guy Ezra Jiang. Whatever, as long as it's not my money, whoever wants to pay can pay. Zhu wasn't happy. Who said that? Strictly speaking, this is your shared property, marital property. You're entitled to 50% of every penny of Ezra Jiang's salary. Don't be naive. Although I didn't really care, Zushu's words did remind me of the monthly rent of several thousand yuan. I asked the real estate agent who helped me sell my house to look into it. It turned out that the house Lena G was living in actually belonged to Ezra Jiang. The house was bought a year ago, shortly after we got married. Although Mr. Ezra Jiang bought it alone, legally, 50% of it should belong to me. My mother-in-law came 2 or 3 times. I didn't go to see her for several days, and she was very unhappy. Then Ezra Jiang called me. "Myra, you've gone too far. If you didn't want to prepare a birthday gift for my mom, you should have said so directly. Why did you agree to it in the first place?" As if my mom hadn't, she mentioned it when she came to Shanghai, otherwise I wouldn't have known at all. Don't you know pregnancy makes you forgetful for 3 years? I've been really absent-minded lately, you should know that. Reminded me. Take a deep breath. Ezra Jiang suppressed his anger and said, "Mira, do you remember? I told you we would. I'll talk to you properly when I get back. Is there some misunderstanding between us?" "No misunderstanding, but if you want to talk, then next Saturday." "Didn't you tell your boss you're pregnant? Why are they still giving you so much work?" Hearing Ezra Jiang's dissatisfied tone on the other end of the phone, I inexplicably felt a bit angry. "Please don't disturb my work, otherwise, I won't have time to talk to you next week either." Maybe he didn't want to argue with a pregnant woman, Ezra Jiang compromised. But the condition was that I had to make time to visit my mother-in-law Lena G, and only then would I agree. I refused outright. Finally, on Wednesday, the agent, the buyer, and I successfully completed the property transaction. The transfer was completed at the Housing Exchange Center. Seeing the account balance on my bank card, the weight in my heart finally lifted. Friday was also the agreed-upon handover day with the buyer. After handing over the house, I packed up Ezra Jiang's belongings and then called. I sent them via courier to Lena G's address, and they should arrive tomorrow. As for Ezra Jiang's apartment, he secretly bought it. The place is small and not in a great location, just close to the subway station. The price wasn't high when he bought it. The total was only 4 or 5 million, and it was bought with a mortgage. The down payment was just over 1 million, so my share was only a few $100,000. Coincidentally, the family car is registered in my name, so that evens things out. On Saturday, I took the 2 divorce agreements sent by the lawyer, signed them, and went to meet Jiang Ezra. When I arrived at the agreed-upon Western restaurant, seeing who the server was, my face immediately darkened. Whoever heard of bringing your mother and cousin, and a fake cousin at that, to have a serious talk with your wife? I didn't go over, just called Jiang Ezra to ask what this meant. Isn't this your chance to apologize to Mom? Jiang Ezra whispered into the phone. My mother-in-law and Lena G saw me right away and knew Ezra Jiang was on the phone with me at the time. One of them stared at me with a serious expression, the other, holding my mother-in-law's arm, whispered something in her ear, and my mother-in-law's face visibly darkened. I coldly said to Ezra Jiang on the phone, if this is how you are, then there's nothing more to say, we'll discuss the rest later. I'll send the divorce agreement to your email. If you think it's fine, sign it and send it back. As soon as I finished speaking, I turned and left the restaurant. After saying that, I didn't even glance at the people at the table and walked out without looking back. What? Divorce agreement? Mira, what are you talking about? Ezra Jiang could no longer control his voice and hurriedly said, after me. I got into a taxi and immediately called my mom, saying I had something important to discuss with her and told her not to hang up because I was afraid. I originally thought Ezra Jiang and my mother-in-law would talk to her first. To my surprise, my mom, who was playing mahjong at the community center at the time, didn't cooperate at all. She simply replied, we'll talk when you get here, and then hung up. By the time I rushed over, she was already there. Panicked, my mom sat alone at the entrance of the community, wiping her tears. Seeing her like that, I regretted not telling her earlier. She had mentioned it to me before but only brought it up during the trip. Who would have thought the first thing my mom said when she saw me was, where is that bastard Ezra Jiang now? Mom, don't listen to what he says. Let me explain properly. Mom was furious, glaring with fire in her eyes. He lashed out at me. What is there to explain? He almost drove my daughter to divorce. What possible explanation could there be? Does he have one? Mira, don't be afraid. If you want a divorce, Mom supports you. Mom, I've already called your aunts, your aunties. I also notified Auntie Xiao, Auntie Air, Auntie San, Uncle's wife, and second uncle's wife, as well as those little rascals. Once they arrive, we'll go confront the Jiang family together. Do they really think a widow and her child are easy to deal with? Bullies. Mom, for the first time since I was reborn, tears streamed down my face as I hugged this petite woman standing there. She's shorter than me, walking ahead, crying uncontrollably. I shouldn't have doubted Mom. Growing up, she always unconditionally supported me. How could she blame me because of Jiang and his words? I only blame myself for telling her too late, ignoring the phone that was almost blown up by Ezra Jiang's calls. I booked a private room in a mahjong parlor and told them everything I discovered about the mahjong, Ezra Jiang and Lena J's affair, and the property Ezra Jiang bought behind my back, except for the part about my rebirth. My eldest aunt, with her fiery temper, immediately wanted to drag my cousin to confront Jiang Zemin, but I stopped them. When they found out I had already sold the house and most of the family's money was with me, my relatives finally calmed down a bit. Only my mother looked at me with pity and asked, Mira, why are you going abroad? How long will you be gone? I knew what my mother was worried about, so I reassured her, if everything goes well, I'll settle there and stay for a year. Let's see how it goes first. If it's good, I'll bring you over to live with me. After careful consideration, I still told her about the abortion. I didn't want this to reach my mother's ears again through Ezra Jiang. She would definitely be heartbroken. Hearing this, the lively private room instantly fell silent. Mom didn't say a word, just tightly gripped my hand. Her lips trembled for a long time, but she couldn't say anything, just nodded. My aunt patted her shoulder. I felt relieved. This is better. No need to deal with that family anymore. Besides, Mira is still young. There will be chances to have children in the future. My mother eventually threw herself into my aunt's arms. I hugged her and burst into tears. When Ezra Jiang couldn't reach me and panicked, rushing to my mother's house, he was severely scolded by the whole family. No one listened to his explanation about his relationship with Lena G. In the end, Ezra Jiang left alone, dejected, and was very depressed during that time. My mother-in-law called me and my mom countless times, but we hung up every time, regardless of whether Ezra Jiang signs or not. I am determined to get a divorce. I will file for divorce before I leave, even if the divorce doesn't go through immediately. Assuming I'm in Singapore and he's in China, 2 years of separation will be enough to meet the divorce requirements. I've already taken care of all company matters, my flight tickets are booked, and for the remaining week, I'll take my mom out to have fun, a trip to Europe, fulfilling the dream we both had since I was a child, Paris, the Eiffel Tower, here we come, mother and daughter. Before boarding the plane, Ezra Jiang kept sending me messages, but I didn't read a single one until the flight attendant reminded me we were asked to turn off our phones, but I still saw the latest message from Ezra Jiang in my inbox. My mother was so angry she fell ill. Looking at my mother's excited expression beside me, I turned off my phone. Ezra Jiang's perspective. I really like how deeply Myra loves me. I was born in the countryside and came to the big city for university. Seeing all the glamorous classmates around me, I inevitably felt inferior, so I could only study hard, secretly vowing to make something of myself in the future, so no one would look down on me. Myra was a junior at my university. Once, I found her library card in the library. That's how our fate began. She was different from other girls. When she looked at me, she always met my eyes directly. She didn't judge me secretly, whether my clothes and shoes were name brands or not. Whether my phone and laptop were the latest models, she always listened to me seriously. When I mustered the courage to confess my feelings to her, I never imagined she would say yes. That day was the happiest day of my life. Later, when I started working, I met a boss who appreciated me, and my income grew rapidly. However, it was still far from enough to buy a decent house in this city of dreams. Although I never brought it up, Myra took out a card and said she wanted to marry me. I knew the money in the house came from her mother selling an old apartment. Although Myra didn't mind, I insisted on buying a house before registering our marriage. The deed was only in Myra's name. I naively thought that one day I could afford a house where both of us could live together, but I never expected, shortly after our marriage, I received a huge project bonus. Combined with my savings, I ended up with over $1 million. Enough to buy a house, even if just a small apartment. I originally planned to give this house as an anniversary gift to Myra, but then, my cousin Lena G, from my hometown, wanted to come to the city to pursue a career. Lena G is the adopted daughter of my uncle and aunt. After her parents passed away when she was 13, she lived with our family, and we grew up as close as real siblings. I knew Lena G had liked me since childhood, but I only saw her as a sister. To avoid conflict between her and Myra, I let her stay temporarily in the apartment I bought, planning to discuss her long-term arrangements once she settled in. Everything was going smoothly, and everything was moving in a good direction. Myra even became pregnant with our child. But where exactly did things go wrong? Ever since that day when Myra came back from her best friend's house and saw Lena G, everything seemed to change. Before, whenever we had conflicts, Myra was always the first to make up with me. But this time, she gave me the cold shoulder for so long, which had never happened before. I specifically drove to Myra's company to pick her up after work. Coincidentally, Lena came to my office to bring me dinner, and I couldn't leave her alone, so I had to bring her along. During that time, my new boss kept finding fault with me, wanting to replace me with his own trusted subordinate. Work was overwhelming, but luckily, Lena G helped me handle the drinking, so I wasn't completely swamped. I thanked her and gave her a bag that Myra hadn't used in a long time. I didn't expect this to upset Myra, especially because she had many bags and I hadn't seen her use that one in ages. Myra, who is usually very understanding, actually threw a huge fit over such a small matter. I didn't have the energy to deal with her at the time, so I thought I'd talk to her properly after returning from my business trip. Normally, Myra would help me pack for business trips, but this time, she pretended not to notice. Out of spite, I asked Lena G to help me pack. Before leaving, I still compromised. After all, I'm pregnant. I told her seriously that we would talk properly when I got back, even if she forgot to send my mom a birthday gift, or didn't send one at all. I didn't blame her. I went to the airport to pick her up. I specifically arranged for my mom to join us on the day of the conversation, hoping to ease the tension between them. My mom insisted on bringing Lena G along, and I didn't object, thinking it would help clear the air and avoid any lingering resentment. Who would have thought that what Myra wanted to talk to me about was divorce? Not only that, but she had secretly sold the house. Did she think I would separate her premarital assets? If I were only after money, I wouldn't have refused to add my name to the property deed in the first place. From that day on, I called Myra countless times and sent countless messages, but she never replied to a single one. I asked Myra's friend to mediate, but Zhu directly blocked me. When I learned from Myra's aunt that Myra had, I aborted our child. I knew there was no possibility left between Myra and me. I signed the divorce papers and sent them to Myra's divorce lawyer. Later, persuaded by my mother, I married Lena G. After marriage, Lena G had no intention of working outside at all. She always found excuses to avoid it. Besides that, the hustle and bustle of city life itself was incredibly stressful. Mortgage, I had to support the whole family. A few years later, my mother fell ill, and I couldn't afford to lose my current job. To keep this job, I did everything I could to please my boss, even if it meant handing over my achievements to his trusted subordinates. Every time I came home from overtime work and saw Lena G arguing with my bedridden mother, I felt I was suffocating, but I couldn't get a divorce because if I did, there would be no one to take care of my mother. I learned some news about Myra through a college classmate. I heard she was doing very well in Singapore, getting promoted within less than 2 weeks of arriving. 3 years later, by the 4th year, she got married, and I know she now has a very lovely daughter. At night, I sat crying in the car in the garage. Myra and I should have had a child too, but everything changed. Story 2. After transmigrating into the female lead of a death literature, I immediately sought out the world's top security designer and haute couture fashion designer. I want a custom-made, fully defensive socialite ensemble. 3 months later, at the welcome banquet, the CEO's white moonlight, Shuya, wanted to frame me by slipping a priceless pink diamond into my pocket, but her fingers kept fumbling over my evening gown. She even broke a nail trying to find the pocket opening. What the hell, Jiang Yu, who the hell has a high-end gown with a painted-on pocket? Shuya stared in disbelief at the large pocket on my evening gown. The pink diamond ring, originally intended to send me to prison, was now awkwardly clutched in her hand. With nowhere to go, the surrounding guests began to gather around. According to the original plot, she should have started shouting, "Thief," by now, but she opened her mouth, looked at me, then at the ring in her hand, and simply couldn't bring herself to shout. After all, the ring was still on her own finger. I elegantly swirled the champagne in my hand, wearing an innocent expression. "Miss Shu, this is the latest piece from the famous minimalist masters, Painting the Pie series. It symbolizes integrity and self-reliance, not seeking external validation. Isn't it beautiful?" Shu Ya's face turned ashen, but true to her role as the villainess, she reacted swiftly. Her eyes darted, and she immediately tried to slip the ring into my handbag. The handbag was exquisitely designed, bulging and looking capable of holding quite a few stolen goods. "Oh, Miss Jiang, your handbag is so beautiful. May I take a look?" While saying she wanted to look, her hand was already as quick as lightning, pushing the ring toward the bag's opening. There was a crisp click. The pink diamond and the handbag collided violently. The ring bounced off and rolled to Gu Yanzhou's feet. Shuya's hand froze in midair. Her expression instantly shattered. This bag. She pressed it again, unwilling to give up, but the bag remained completely still. Calmly, I picked up the handbag and tapped it on the table like a brick, producing a dull thud. "Miss Shu has a good eye." I beamed with a radiant smile. "This is a solid acrylic, one-piece cast artwork, designed to keep wealth hidden, only taking in, never letting out." "Oh, wait, that's not quite right. It doesn't take in at all. After all, I wouldn't dare carry a bag that could so easily be stuffed with something unclean." Gu Yanzhou picked up the pink diamond ring at his feet, his brow furrowed tightly as he cast a dark, intense gaze toward Shuya. Shuya's eyes instantly welled up with tears, looking at Gu Yanzhou with a pitiful, tear-streaked expression. "Yanzhou, I just wanted to give Miss Jiang a welcome gift. I never expected Miss Jiang to be so guarded, carrying a fake bag." When she went out, I rolled my eyes. "Stop acting." I tucked that solid acrylic brick into my arms. "It cost me quite a bit to have it custom-made, Mr. Gu. Your white moonlight isn't very bright. With bodyguards and assistants, do I really need to carry my own lipstick? What did I do to provoke her by carrying an acrylic solid bag? Or is she just throwing a tantrum because some scheme of hers didn't work out?" With that, I waved my hand. Immediately, 20 burly men in black suits stepped forward from behind me and shouted in unison, "What are your orders, miss?" Shuya was so intimidated by the imposing presence that she took a step back, her high heel twisted, and she stumbled toward me. In the original book, this stumble was described as her seizing the chance to tear off my strapless dress, exposing me in front of the city's elite and ruining my reputation. However, she had just grabbed the collar of my dress and yanked it hard. There was a loud tearing sound. That was the sound of her nail breaking. My dress didn't move a bit. Not even a single wrinkle appeared. Nanoscale aerospace memory fabric, embedded with bulletproof fibers, fully welded back zipper. I looked down at Shuya, who was lying on my chest with a bewildered expression, and affectionately patted her head. Miss Shu, save your breath. Unless you have a chainsaw, even I can't get this dress off. Tonight, I'll have to call the firefighters for help when I get home. You'd better save your strength for picking your toes. Gu Yanzhou's face darkened like the bottom of a pot. He yanked Shuya back into his arms, shooting me a look of disgust. Jiang Yu, you're absolutely insane, dressed like that. Are you here for a banquet or an anti-terror operation? I spread my hands matter-of-factly. Mr. Gu, considering the security vulnerabilities around you and certain individuals with sticky fingers, this is a reasonable act of self-protection. What? Are you unhappy? Is it because you didn't get to see me in a state of undress? The reason why a white moonlight is considered a white moonlight is that, aside from being skilled at framing others, she must also possess one or two unique talents. In the novel, Shuya is an excellent pianist, especially the piece, Wedding in a Dream, which is the song that sealed her love with Gu Yanzhou. In the original book, she stunned everyone at the banquet with her performance, and Gu Yanzhou was utterly captivated by it. They wanted to terminate my contract on the spot and even blacklist me, an art ignorant stand-in. Shuya composed herself, determined to crush me with her talent. She gracefully walked to the Steinway piano in the center of the hall, sat down, and glanced back at me with a provocative look. Miss Jiang, I heard you only know how to do housework. You probably can't appreciate such refined art, can you? This piece is Yan Zhou's favorite. With that, fluid notes flowed from her fingertips. Wedding in a Dream. It was indeed this piece. Shuya played with intoxication, occasionally casting deep, affectionate glances at Gu Yanzhou, hoping to see the awe and nostalgia in that man's eyes. However, she played for half a minute, but Gu Yanzhou didn't show any ecstatic expression. On the contrary, Gu Yanzhou's face grew increasingly ugly and pale. Finally, just as Shuya reached the most brilliant part of her performance, Gu Yanzhou covered his mouth and let out a dry heave. Ugh, Shuya was startled, and the sound of the piano abruptly stopped. Yanzhou, what's wrong? Is this piece too moving? Gu Yanzhou pushed his assistant away, his face pale, his eyes filled with a visceral disgust and fear. Stop playing, stop it right now. Shuya was stunned, her eyes welling up with tears. Why, isn't this your favorite? I stood to the side, peeled a grape and popped it into my mouth, keeping my achievements and reputation well hidden. Why? Because he was sick of hearing it. Ever since I found out that the white moonlight was returning to the country, I started preparing to counter Shuya's move. I spent a fortune to bribe all the broadcast systems in the Gu Group building, the elevator music, and even the car stereo of Gu Yanzhou's driver. 3 whole months. Every morning when Gu Yanzhou entered the elevator, it was the DJ version of Wedding in a Dream. At lunchtime, the cafeteria broadcast played the Eru version of Wedding in a Dream. In the afternoon, when he went out, the luxury car played the choral version of Wedding in a Dream. Even when he goes to the bathroom, the sensor-activated flushing system plays the Swona version of Wedding in a Dream. What's even more extreme is that I hired 300 music conservatory students every day. They take turns lining up outside the Gu Group building, at the entrance of Gu Yanzhou's villa, and in front of the restaurants he frequents, playing this piece in an orderly fashion. Those who play well get 200 yuan, while those who play poorly get 500 yuan. For the past 3 months, Gu Yanzhou has practically been living in the hell of Wedding in a Dream. Now, whenever he hears the opening notes of that piece, instead of fond memories, he experiences severe physical nausea and migraines. Miss Shu, isn't this piece a bit outdated? I wiped my hands and added the finishing blow, taking my time. President Gu has been a bit PTSD about this piece lately. How about switching to Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star? President Gu probably hasn't heard that one as much. Shuya was escorted off the stage by the bodyguards, although she defended herself in the end, saying she wanted to evoke the beautiful memories between them, but in Gu Yenzhou's eyes, Shuya's earlier behavior was no different from feeding him a mouthful of rice that had gone sour for 3 months. Shuya was deeply shaken and wallowed in despondency for a while, but in CEO romance novels, women never admit defeat. At the stairwell, the strategic battleground of wealthy family feuds, countless female leads have miscarried here, and countless supporting female characters have broken their legs here. This is a blind spot for surveillance, yet it is the peak stage for acting skills. Shuya stood by the steps, her back to the banquet hall, her voice low and fierce. Jiangyu, brother Yenzhou is just momentarily bewitched by you. If I roll down from here, guess who he'll believe? You, or me with a broken leg. I stepped back about 5 meters, munching on the sunflower seeds handed to me by a bodyguard. Miss Shu, I advise you to be kind. I kindly reminded her, Newton's third law, the force of action is mutual. Care to learn about it? Shuya sneered, clearly not understanding my physics explanation. The next second, she grabbed the handrail, leaned back exaggeratedly, and let out a scream. Ah, Jiangyu, why did you push me? Her movements flowed smoothly, with an incredibly strong sense of conviction. She was like a kite with its string cut, driven by a resolve to die, hurtling fiercely toward those 20 steps. Yet, there was no expected tumble, only a clear, resounding sound that echoed through the corridor. Duang, Shuya didn't roll down. It felt as if her back had slammed into an invisible wall, the tremendous force of the rebound flinging her back like a rubber ball face down. She crashed straight onto the floor. Ugh, Shuya lay on the ground, motionless for a long time. As she lifted her head, 2 streams of blood gushed from her nose, and her once delicate, upturned nose was now twisted into a bizarre J-shape. Ignoring the pain, she turned her head in terror, staring at the empty stairwell. A ghost. Gu Yenzhou rushed over at the sound, seeing Shuya with blood all over her face, and then spotting me cracking melon seeds 5 meters away. His brows furrowed again. What's going on? Shuya saw her savior, threw herself at him, and pointed at me while wailing, her voice muffled. Yenzhou, Jiangyu tried to push me down the stairs, but there's a ghost wall blocking it here. Gu Yenzhou walked over to take a closer look. He noticed something off about the light at the stairwell and reached out to investigate. His fingertips met a cold, hard surface. It was a high-transparency glass wall, polished to complete invisibility. Gu Yenzhou froze, then knocked on it. Thump, thump, thump. The sound was muffled, the glass absurdly thick. On the glass, the outline of Shuya's back and a few strands of hair were imprinted from her impact. Jiangyu, Gu Yenzhou turned to look at me, his gaze as if he were seeing an alien. What is this? I brushed the melon seed crumbs off my hands and walked over, taking out the cleaning spray and cloth from the bodyguard. I sprayed twice at the mark left by Shuya's collision and began wiping it off with practiced ease. Mr. Gu, you don't recognize this, I said with a smile. I had it installed, imported from Germany, anti-scam, anti-framing, fully automatic scapegoat protection wall. Given the abundance of unsavory characters at tonight's banquet, I took precautions to prevent anyone from staging an accident at this classic photo spot. I pointed at the spotless glass. I spent 800,000 to seal off the stairwell. For the invisible effect, I personally polished it 3 times. Mr. Gu, is it transparent enough? Gu Yenzhou looked at the sealed staircase, then at Shuya lying on the ground with her nose askew and eyes crooked. The corner of his mouth twitched, but he couldn't utter a word. Shuya trembled with rage, throwing herself with all her might, only to crash right into this damned glass. I walked over with good intentions, pointing right at her nose. Miss Shu, don't be so angry. Your implants are about to poke right out. While they're still warm, hurry and press them back in, or once they set, you'll have to send them back to the factory for repairs. Shuya rolled her eyes. This time, she really fainted. Shuya was hospitalized, although she didn't end up crippled. A broken nose and a mild concussion were enough to keep her in the hospital for a while. According to the script of an old-school tragic romance, the next step is the classic hunger strike maneuver. The white moonlight will claim that the psychological trauma is too great, and can only eat the food I prepare. Then, out of thin air, rat poison, laxatives, or abortion pills will appear in the meal, only to be turned around and blamed on me. Just as expected, on the 3rd day, Gu Yenzhou's phone calls bombarded me right on schedule. Shuya wants to drink century egg and lean pork congee. It has to be made by your own hands, Jiang Yu, this is what you owe her, listen. Is this even human language? Without a second thought, I agreed. When I arrived at the hospital carrying the thermal container, Shuya lay weakly on the hospital bed, with Gu Yanzhou keeping watch by her side. Seeing me enter, Shuya shrank back into Gu Yanzhou's embrace, a glint of calculation flashing in her eyes. Don't be afraid, I'm here. Gu Yanzhou comforted her with a pat, then turned to look at me coldly. Did you bring the porridge? Brought it, just out of the pot, still piping hot. I smiled and twisted open the thermos. As soon as the lid cracked open a sliver, an indescribable smell began to permeate the hospital room. It wasn't a pleasant aroma, instead, it was a strange, unsettling odor, a mix of the bitterness of Chinese herbs and a peculiar, fishy scent. Gu Yanzhou frowned. What is this smell? Good medicine tastes bitter. As I spoke, I poured that lump of deep green, sticky, cement-like mixture into the bowl. Its appearance was utterly terrifying, looking exactly like poison from a witch's cauldron. Gu Yanzhou's brows furrowed even deeper. Are you sure this is century egg and lean pork congee? It's a secret recipe, with many medicinal herbs added for nourishment. The color might not look appealing, but it's definitely highly nutritious. I handed the bowl to Shuya, looking at her with a half-smile. Miss Shu, this porridge is the fruit of 3 hours of my labor. Shuya stared at the bubbling green mass in the bowl, her stomach already churning. She wanted to frame me, but she didn't intend to risk her life for it. But this was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity for the position of Mrs. Gu. She gave it her all. This is Miss Zhang's kind gesture. I'll drink it. Shuya trembled as she took the bowl, scooped up a large spoonful, closed her eyes, and forced herself to swallow it. She had originally intended to gulp it down quickly to get it over with, but she never expected this biochemical weapon to be so potent. The moment it entered her mouth, it was unbearably bitter, so bitter it felt like her soul was leaving her body, so bitter her skull seemed to be boiling. Ugh, Shuya could no longer hold back. Her body curled up like a cooked shrimp, and she vomited with a loud retch. The physical nausea brought tears streaming down her face as she continued to retch repeatedly, feeling as though her concussion was worsening. Shuya, Gu Yanzhou was greatly alarmed, quickly supporting her. It's poisoned, Yanzhou, there's poison in this porridge. Jiang Yu, you want to poison me? Cough, cough, cough. My throat hurts so much, my stomach hurts, my intestines feel like they're being torn apart. Shuya was fully immersed in her performance, her face deathly pale, sweat beading on her forehead, looking as if she had been struck by a severe poison. I stood at the foot of the bed, clenching my jaw tightly, watching Shuya put on a dramatic performance. I really wanted to laugh, but laughing out loud at such a serious moment would be too disrespectful to the victim. I quickly lowered my head, holding back my laughter until my shoulders shook, but in their eyes, my appearance was clearly the fear of a conspiracy exposed. A triumphant gleam flashed in Shuya's eyes as she weakly collapsed into Gu Yanzhou's arms. Yanzhou, look, she's guilty. Call the police. Hurry and call the police to arrest her. Gu Yanzhou looked at the mess on the bed and the anguished Shuya. His anger flaring up instantly, he knocked the thermal container out of my hand, splattering green paste all over the floor. Jiang Yu, if anything happens to Shuya after drinking your porridge, I'll make sure you rot in prison. Are you sure you want to call the police? I shrugged indifferently. After all, it wasn't me who cooked the porridge. If they knew whose family made this porridge, they'd probably kneel down and lick the bowl clean. Gu Yanzhou took out his phone and reached out to dial 911. Hold on. I pulled a metal can from my bag and slapped it onto the table with a snap. Silver canister, with gilded characters in large print, ultra-high-end sterile special supply nutritional meal No. 8803, under the Gu group. Gu Yanzhou's finger, poised to dial, froze. Shuya's moan caught in her throat. What is this? He was stunned. Didn't President Gu say he wanted to make amends? How could something I made myself be this nutritious and hygienic? I pointed at the metal concealed with a strip bearing the personal signature of Madame Gu. So I spent a high price to order this nutritional meal from President Gu's mother. Madame Gu's exclusive nutrition team, produced in a fully sterile workshop with blockchain traceability. Every grain of rice has a serial number, the chef's cooking process is recorded on video, and even the delivery route is tracked with GPS and escorted by security personnel. Upon hearing that I was going to deliver food to Miss Shu, Mrs. Gu personally took charge, overseeing the process and even adding some special ingredients herself. Shuya's eyes widened, her pupils nearly falling into the pile of green vomit. If the porridge had been sent by Mrs. Gu, even with 10 times the courage, she wouldn't dare call it poison. To say this porridge is poisoned is to question the Gu family's security system and to question Gu Yanzhou's own mother. No, Shuya panicked and no longer dared to complain about her stomachache. I smiled and took a step closer, looking at her pale, greenish face. Miss Shu, did you just say there's poison in this porridge? Are you suggesting that Mrs. Gu is trying to poison you? Gu Yanzhou picked up the can and scanned the QR code on it. His phone displayed a detailed production process and a video of the elderly lady's kind instructions. Gu Yanzhou's face turned a kaleidoscope of colors. Shuya, this is a bitter melon detox and stomach-nourishing porridge that Mom specially had delivered. Mom said you've been too irritable lately, prone to delusions. So she specifically had them add triple concentrated bitter melon extract to help cool you down. Shuya was in a bind, unable to voice her bitterness. Her earlier shout of, "It's poisonous," had now become bullets ricocheting back at her. I don't know, Shuya defended herself weakly, trying to use tears to muddle through. It's too bitter, I thought. Bitter medicine cures sickness, after all. I considerately interrupted her, bending down to pick up the half-eaten bowl of porridge from the floor. Miss Shu, Madame Gu clearly stated in the video that she despises wasting food more than anything in her life. This porridge is specially supplied, costing several thousand per jar. After vomiting so much just now, you wouldn't disrespect the old lady by refusing to finish this remaining half bowl, would you? Gu Yanzhou rubbed his temples, though he felt a pang of heartache. Since it involved his mother, he had no choice but to brace himself and say, Shuya, drink it. It's Mom's heartfelt gesture. Don't let it go to waste. Shuya was utterly devastated under the expectant gazes of both me and Gu Yanzhou. She tearfully accepted that half bowl of nightmarish green paste. 1 bite, 2 bites, each mouthful was torture. She forced down the remaining porridge, tears streaming down her face. I watched her finish, then clapped my hands in satisfaction. Miss Shu is so well behaved. Since you love it so much, there are still 10 more cans in this box. I pointed to the whole box of canned goods that had just been delivered to the door. Mrs. Gu said, there's plenty. You can't leave the hospital until you finish them all. Shuya rolled her eyes, and this time she really fainted, overwhelmed by the bitterness. After being discharged from the hospital, Shuya did quiet down for a while. Probably those 12 cans of bitter gourd porridge left an indelible psychological shadow on her. She now has PTSD when it comes to green mush, but I haven't forgotten. She still has one last trump card, and that is her face. She is Gu Yanzhou's white moonlight because of her pure, innocent doe-like eyes and the dimples that appear at the corners of her lips when she smiles. Whenever she made that expression, Gu Yanzhou would mindlessly forgive all her mischief. On that day, I slapped my resignation letter on the HR director's desk and walked past the CEO's office with a cardboard box in my arms. Shuya stood before Gu Yanzhou, dressed in a cotton white dress. Her makeup was meticulously crafted to look naturally bare, emphasizing the fragile aura of a white moonlight. The moment Gu Yanzhou saw her like this, his gaze immediately softened. Shuya, Yanzhou, I don't blame Miss Jiang. As long as I can watch you from afar, I am content. After saying this, she lowered her head slightly, the chin tightened, revealing a slender, pale, swan-like fragile neck. The angle was tricky, probably practiced no less than 1,000 times. This was her ultimate move, the pinnacle of pure desire. Gu Yanzhou's Adam's apple bobbed, and he was just about to raise his hand to wrap it around her shoulder. At that moment, the elevator doors opened. Hello, President Gu. A uniform, deafeningly sweet chorus of greetings rang out. Gu Yanzhou and Shuya turned their heads simultaneously. They saw 20 girls, all dressed in white dresses, with long, straight black hair and wearing first love makeup, step out of the elevator. They stood in 2 rows, each face adorned with the same pure smile, each corner of the lips graced with 2 faintly visible dimples. At a glance, it was all Shuya. Gu Yanzhou's pupils trembled violently. Shuya's expression completely shattered. What is this? I walked by holding a cardboard box and kindly explained, oh, isn't this exactly the type President Gu likes the most? I figured since I'm leaving, to keep President Gu from feeling lonely, I specifically went to various universities and influencer companies to recruit 300 beauties of this exact type. 300, Shia shrieked. Right, this is the first batch. I pointed at the vast expanse of Shia clones. We have the innocent type, the green tea type, the academic genius type, and even one specially designed to imitate Miss Shu's crying scenes. Mr. Gu, feel free to choose. One for each day, never repeating. One of the girls stepped forward, revealing eyes even more innocent than Shuya's, like a timid fawn, and called out softly, Mr. Gu, I'm Xiaoya, number 1, I can play the piano. Another girl, not to be outdone, said, Mr. Gu, I'm Yiya, number 2, I fall down in a particularly graceful way. Gu Yanzhou looked at the corridor full of white moonlight and suddenly felt a bit dizzy. Anything, once mass-produced, loses its value. He once thought that the gentle bow of Shu Ya's head was the most beautiful sight in the world, but now, dozens of identical, copy-pasted heads were staring at him, leaving Gu Yanzhou with nothing but a pale, sickly expression. Shu Ya trembled with anger. Pointing at me, Jiang Yu, you're insulting me. Not at all, I said. Sincerely, I'm helping President Gu achieve freedom with his white moonlight. From then on, Gu Yanzhou developed a peculiar condition, severe prosopagnosia complicated by Shuya PTSD. The sight of a woman in a white dress on the street made him nauseous, and dimples gave him a headache. Shuya's face, once her proudest weapon, had completely lost its power. In novels, children are the ultimate tool for climbing the social ladder. Shuya clearly understood this well. Her belly was still as flat as ever, but the messages in the Gu family group chat were already flying everywhere. Suspected to be with child, a Gu family heir. These 8 words were like a heavy bomb, exploding with joy in the heart of the Gu family matriarch, who sent bird's nest and sea cucumber flowing like water into Shuya's apartment. Shuya straightened her back once more. Even though Gu Yanzhou felt nauseous at the sight of her face lately, a mother's status is elevated by her child. As long as she gave birth to the eldest grandson, the position of Mrs. Gu would be hers. She deliberately strutted around in front of those 300 substitutes, flaunting her belly with pride, but rack her brains as she might, she could never have imagined that the Gu family actually didn't lack for grandsons. To be precise, thanks to my maneuvering, the Gu family was about to experience a grandchild boom. Friday evening, the Gu family's ancestral home hosted a family dinner. The Gu matriarch specifically called out Shuya by name, and didn't leave me out either. At the dinner table, Shuya shyly caressed her stomach. Madam, I've been feeling nauseous lately, and the doctor said it might be. Before Madame Gu could even feel a surge of joy, a woman holding a child suddenly rushed in from outside the door. Madam, this is Mr. Gu's child. Immediately after, the second, the third, within the time it took to finish a meal, over a dozen women carrying children had entered. Some of the children were 3 years old, while others were still in swaddling clothes. The blood pressure medicine in old Mrs. Gu's hand plopped into the soup bowl. She pointed at the group of children, entering the late stages of Parkinson's disease ahead of schedule. Whose are these? Gu Yanzhou's. I calmly took a sip of tea. Oh, these are all the underprivileged children that Mr. Gu has sponsored in recent years. They admire him so much that they've all taken him as their godfather. According to seniority, they should all call you grandma. And, I lowered my voice to Shuya. Among these 300 stand-ins, I've already signed contracts with them. Whoever can conceive a child for Mr. Gu, no matter what means are used, as long as the paternity test passes, will be rewarded with 20 million. Although Mr. Gu finds your face annoying, as long as the numbers are large enough, this child will eventually come. Miss Shu, whether the child in your belly is Mr. Gu's is still uncertain. Even if it is, it's just one of hundreds of potential heirs competing for the inheritance. Shuya was completely dumbfounded. She thought the child was her trump card. Little did she expect that in my hands, the child was reduced to a pair of threes. Old Mrs. Gu looked at the chattering swarm of god-grandsons filling the room, then thought of the 300 daughters-in-law and the grandchild army, and her head began to throb, out of breath in one go, and fainted. Shuya also went from being a rare treasure of the Gu family's old lady to a common cabbage found everywhere in the vegetable market. Who knows how many more there will be in the future? Not even in the future. If I wanted, I could give Gu Yanzhou another 300 suns tomorrow. Gu Yanzhou's face turned deathly pale, and he instinctively clamped his legs together. After that day, the security at the Gu family estate was upgraded to the highest level. It is said that Gu Yanzhou consulted his private doctor overnight. He wants to get a vasectomy, desperately so. After the news that Gu Yanzhou wanted to get a vasectomy overnight spread, Shuya became anxious, the path of a mother gaining status. Through her son was blocked by me with 300 good sons, she decided to change her path. After all, as the white moonlight in a domineering CEO novel, her character profile had to include a few labels like overseas returnee elite and business prodigy. Shuya decided to stop obsessing over love and romance. She wanted to become Gu Yanzhou's right-hand woman, making him unable to do without her. Leveraging her identity as an overseas returnee elite, she volunteered to take on the most important overseas merger and acquisition case for the Gu Group. This should have been the highlight moment in the original book where she shone brilliantly and put me, the ignorant stand-in, in my place. She stormed into the boardroom with a meticulously prepared business proposal. Yanzhou, entrust this project to me, I'm confident I can secure it. That proposal was indeed impressive. Detailed data, thorough analysis. The most crucial thing is, Gu Yanzhou was getting anxious, he was too eager to prove that. His white moonlight was not a sniveling waste, not some mass-produced goods that could be easily replaced by 300 surgically enhanced faces. He had a discerning eye. Let's do as Yaya suggested. Gu Yanzhou made the final decision on the spot, signing the authorization letter and appointing Shuya as the chief negotiator. Shuya gave me a smug look. Miss Jiang, you don't understand business matters. You should go back to drawing your pockets. I don't understand. I smiled without speaking. If I remember correctly, this is the scrapped proposal I threw into the wastepaper basket in the study 3 months ago. At the time, the data fabrication inside was so blatant that even using it for practice felt dirty, so I casually shredded half of it. It seems now that Shuya not only retrieved it from the trash but also painstakingly pieced it back together. That project itself was a massive pitfall. That overseas company had long been insolvent, with severe financial fraud, making it a classic Ponzi scheme. Shuya never conducted due diligence, or perhaps she simply couldn't understand financial statements, only seeing the deceptively attractive data. Half a month later, at the signing ceremony, Shuya changed into a champagne-colored haute couture gown, the camera flashes making her face appear ghostly pale. She held the pen in her hand, having practiced her signature thousands of times at home for this very moment. She signed, lifted the pen, smiled, and looked up, all in one smooth motion. The next second, Interpol agents stormed in. Gu Corporation is suspected of involvement in a transnational money laundering case. The person in charge is requested to come with us. Shuya was stunned. Gu Yanzhou was stunned. It turned out that the overseas company was a shell for an international money laundering organization, with Shuya's signature. She had directly signed the Gu Group onto a pirate ship. Gu's stock price plummeted by 30% that day. As the primary person responsible, Shuya was taken away for investigation. In order to save the company, Gu Yanzhou had to sell off assets and beg for help everywhere. I sat at home watching the news and eating potato chips. Tisk tsk, I told you to read more books and watch less of those domineering CEO dramas. Modern corporate espionage is nowhere near that simple. After all, Gu Yanzhou is the male lead, and his protagonist halo is still intact. He paid a hefty price to bail Shuya out, since if this matter were proven true, he wouldn't be able to escape blame either. After being released, Shuya completely turned to the dark side. She realized that as long as I was around, she would never win. Moreover, she discovered that I was more than just a paid stand-in. The core technology patents of the Gu Group over the past few years were actually mostly held by several shell companies under my name. This was the blind spot I discovered after reading it 800 times. In the original story, the female lead is actually a hidden scientific research genius. However, the original character was obsessed with love and gave all the patents to the male lead. On the very first day I transmigrated, I transferred all these patents back to my own name. Shuya encouraged Gu Yanzhou, that bitch Jiangyu. The shell companies under her name have been illegally using the core technology patents of the Gu Group. This is job embezzlement. It's theft of trade secrets. Gu Yanzhou's previously dull eyes suddenly lit up. The Gu Group is currently facing a broken capital chain, and what they lack Most as core assets for collateral. If we can prove that these high-value patents belong to the Gu family, the bank loan will be approved, and he can turn things around. Are you sure? Gu Yanzhou's voice was hoarse. Absolutely certain. The development period for these patents all falls within her tenure. Shuya gritted her teeth in anger. This time, I'm going to make her cough up every penny she took, with interest. And then she can go to prison and pick up the soap with the inmates. Gu Yanzhou immediately joined forces with the shareholders, called the police, filed a lawsuit, and sealed off the scene. He executed this series of moves with seamless fluidity. By the time the police arrived, Shuya was smiling brighter than a flower. Jiang Yu, let's see if your bulletproof skirt can save you this time. I calmly poured them a cup of tea. Officer, are arrests made so hastily these days, based solely on their one-sided account? The lead officer frowned, handling the matter strictly by the book. Mr. Gu has provided detailed evidence proving that the company under your name has stolen Gu Corporation's patented technology. Ms. Jiang, please cooperate with the investigation. Stolen? I smiled, picked up the teacup, and took a sip. If an employee takes something from the company, that's called embezzlement. But if the boss takes something from their own company, moving it from the left hand to the right, what's that called? That's called internal resource integration. Gu Yanzhou let out a scornful laugh. Boss, Jiang Yu, have you lost your mind over money? If you're the boss, then what am I? You. I pulled open the drawer and took out the delivery slips from my frenzied buying spree on the secondary market over the past few months, along with the debt-to-equity conversion agreement that had long since taken effect, and a bright red equity transfer document. I pushed the documents in front of Gu Yanzhou. Right now, you could be considered my high-level employee. Or perhaps, a CEO about to be dismissed. I sat in the boss's chair, swiveled around, and watched them with great interest. I think you've misunderstood something. It's not that I'm clinging to the Gu family and refusing to leave. It's that the Gu family has now changed its surname to Jiang. Shuya's smile froze on her face as she and Gu Yanzhou exchanged bewildered glances. Gu Yanzhou had a breakdown. He lost his company, his dignity, and now even his beloved white moonlight had become nothing but a troublemaker. He began to question his life. That's when I delivered the final blow. It is also the biggest bombshell in the original book. The mystery of one's origins. On the surface, Gu Yanzhou is the sole heir of the Gu family, the only descendant in 9 generations. However, the true heir of the Gu family is actually someone else. The book only briefly mentions that after Shuya accidentally learned the news, she helped Gu Yanzhou cover it up, ensuring the secret would never come to light. I searched in secret, but found nothing until that day, at the company entrance. I saw the janitor's grandson, just as Gu Yanzhou was trying to use the family card to persuade old Mrs. Gu, hoping she would use her pension to help him turn the tables. I threw a DNA test report on the table. Mr. Gu, I'm sorry. It seems you are not the legitimate heir of the Gu family. You're fabricating evidence. You'd stoop to such despicable tricks just to seize the family fortune. Gu Yanzhou tore the report to shreds, his eyes bloodshot with rage. I calmly watched the flurry of paper scraps swirling in the air. I knew you'd say that. That's why I specifically invited 2 people here today. Pop, pop. I clapped my hands twice. The gate of the Gu family's old mansion was pushed open. Entering was old Wang, who had been sweeping the ground at the company entrance for 20 years, followed by a young man in a yellow delivery uniform. The young man was still holding 2 servings of spicy hot pot in his hands. Looking utterly bewildered, who ordered the extra spicy? This order is about to be late. Can you sign for it first? Everyone's gaze shifted back and forth between Mrs. Gu, the delivery guy, and Gu Yanzhou. Genetics is a truly remarkable thing. Although the delivery guy had dark skin and was sweating profusely, the heroic look in his eyes was almost an exact replica of Mr. Gu in his youth. In contrast, Gu Yanzhou, having lived a life of luxury for years and undergone minor adjustments to maintain his domineering CEO image, now stood with a contorted expression next to the delivery guy, looking like an overpackaged knockoff. Let me introduce. I pointed at the delivery guy. This is the true bloodline of the Gu family. As for you, Gu Yanzhou, whether it was a hospital mix-up back then or a deliberate switch, in any case, I spread my hands. You're fake, old Mrs. Gu stared at the delivery guy's face, her cloudy eyes wide open, unable to catch her breath. Her eyes rolled back, and she Fainted again, so practiced it was heartbreaking. No, impossible. I'm the sole heir of the Gu family. I'm the chosen one. Gu Yanzhou rushed at the delivery guy like a madman, wanting to tear that face apart. The delivery guy, used to climbing stairs for deliveries all year round, was agile. He sidestepped and gave a push. Gu Yanzhou lost his balance, slammed hard into the corner of the dining table, and blood streamed from his forehead. What's wrong with this person? The delivery guy shielded the spicy hot pot in his arms, trying to scam me. I have a dashcam. The medical team I had arranged in advance quickly appeared and carried the elderly lady to the living room for treatment. Also entering together were staff from the city's 3 most authoritative appraisal agencies, holding freshly issued, expedited comparison results, not just one report, but 3 appraisal reports. Old Mrs. Gu and Gu Yanzhou. Old Mrs. Gu and the delivery guy, Gu Yanzhou and the delivery guy. Each report thoroughly shattered the character Gu in Gu Yanzhou's name. Mr. Gu, if you don't believe it, we can draw blood on the spot. The lead doctor adjusted his glasses, but science doesn't change its results just because you're angry. Gu Yanzhou completely lost his legal right to inheritance. He went from being a high and mighty domineering CEO to a complete imposter. The delivery guy placed the spicy hot pot on the table and scratched his head. Well, sis, this Gu family. Will it be mine from now on? I glanced at him. Dream on, the company is mine, and the Gu family's debts are yours, but considering you're the real heir, I can offer you a position as the head of the security team. Interested? The young man's eyes lit up. Does it include meals, and does it come with social insurance and housing fund? Yes, I'll do it. See, that's the reaction of a normal person. There aren't that many family feuds among the wealthy. In the end, it all boils down to 3 meals a day and a few pieces of silver. Gu Yanzhou had nothing left. As soon as Shuya saw Gu Yanzhou fall from power, she immediately turned her back on him. She made a big reveal in front of the media, claiming that the previous incidents of framing me were all orchestrated by Gu Yanzhou, that the money laundering was forced on her by him, and even alleging that Gu Yanzhou had violent tendencies. She wanted to clear her own name and then find another partner. But Gu Yanzhou was no pushover either. He presented all the evidence of how Shuya, in her bid to climb the social ladder, had drugged his drink, forged pregnancy test results, and embezzled company assets. In court, the two tore into each other, exposing each other's private affairs, from their sordid bedroom secrets to shady illegal dealings. Everything was laid bare. In the public gallery, the journalists' fingers flew over their keyboards, moving so fast they seemed to blur. This material is 800 times more dramatic than the most sensational annual soap opera. The final verdict was handed down, with multiple charges combined. The ill-fated lovers Gu Yanzhou and Shuya both joyfully received their silver bracelets. The sentence is long enough for them to step on the sewing machines until sparks fly inside. It is said that in the police car, Shuya tried to feign dizziness and fall into the male officer's arms. As a result, a female officer used a grappling move, dislocating Shuya's arm on the spot. Several months later, the logo on the top floor of the Gu building had been taken down and replaced with the bold, powerful characters, Jiang Group. A knock sounded at the door. An assistant Xiao Zhang peeked in, looking conflicted. Mr. Jiang, there's something. Those 300 stand-ins are still waiting in the HR department. What do you think we should do? I sighed. Give them a severance package. Those willing to stay can be assessed and transferred to sales positions. For those unwilling, send them to acting classes. After all, their acting skills are far better than Shuya's. Xiao Zhang was stunned. Sales, besides looking like Shuya, they don't have any other special skills. How could there not be? I laughed. They could endure a lunatic like Gu Yanzhou for so long, and even play the role of a green tea bitch to perfection. With that kind of mental fortitude and acting skills, going into real estate or insurance sales would be like bringing a gun to a knife fight. Tell them to bring the same energy they use on scumbags to deal with clients, and they'll be the top sales champions by the end of the year. Also, I added, how is that security captain doing? Xiao Zhang perked up immediately. You mean Wang? Oh no, Gu Chang. He's doing exceptionally well. Just the other day, we caught 2 corporate spies, and now they're downstairs with the security team practicing military-style boxing. That energy and spirit are far superior to the former CEO. Mr. Gu, look, make the best use of everything and let everyone do their best. who says wealthy families are only filled with scheming and intrigue. Productivity is everywhere, yet it's nowhere to be found. With foresight into the plot and a talent for recognizing and utilizing people's strengths, my business empire rapidly expanded. Having read the novel 800 times, I not only overturned the original plot but also became the richest person in the process. There was even a director who wanted to turn my story into a movie. During the interview, the reporter asked me, "Mr. Jiang, what is the secret to your success?" I turned to the camera, flashing my signature professional fake smile. "It's nothing, really. I just read a lot of books, especially those stories about chasing after a wife only to end up in a crematorium, substitute love, kidney harvesting tragic romances. Read them a few more times, and you'll realize there's nothing in this world that can't be solved with nanomaterials, all-around surveillance, and a top-tier legal team. If there is, then add another mercenary rescue team. Remember, whether in life or in business, only by rejecting a love-struck mindset can there be a future." That night, the stock price of the Jiang Group hit a new high. At this moment, inside the iron bars, Gu Yanzhou, who was operating a sewing machine, sneezed. He will never know that what defeated him was not some divine destiny, but rather a hard-working beast of burden who, with the help of a close friend, had thoroughly studied and memorized the entire text after hearing the first story above. What are your thoughts? Feel free to share your opinions in the comments section. Next, there is another similar story. Let's continue to see. In the 8th year of their marriage, photos of Gu Beichuan traveling through Europe with his childhood sweetheart flooded the internet. The childhood sweetheart even posted a high-profile caption, "Always in love, never reaching the end." I gave it a like with my main account, then turned around and publicly posted my marriage certificate with Gu Beichuan on Weibo. Gu Beichuan called to confront me. After he had vented enough, I calmly said, "As you wish, let's get a divorce." Gu Beichuan called just as I had finished packing up all my belongings from the Gu family villa. It's almost laughable. After 8 years of marriage to Gu Beichuan, aside from the perfunctory gifts he gave me each year, I had pitifully few things of my own, and it made sense. Ever since I fell out with my family over him, he had kept me confined at home under the guise of being a virtuous wife and mother. At first, he gave me a supplementary card in his name, but later he began to find fault with me in every way, from not understanding how to analyze the company's situation to not being as carefree and radiant as Su Noonyuo, and eventually, he took the card back. Answering the call, Gu Beichuan's sinister voice rang in my ear, and I could faintly hear Su Noonyuo's sobbing. I checked the time. It should be midnight in Europe right now. At this hour, it was hard not to let my thoughts run wild. Ji Yun. What do you mean by this? Do you have any idea how badly Noonyuo has been cyberbullied because of you? The last shred of hope in my heart was completely severed by him. He won't remember that today is our wedding anniversary. If it were before, I would have definitely tried every possible way to put on a facade of peace in front of others. In the past, if he had done something like this, I would have already come up with excuses for him before he even had to explain himself to relatives and friends, but this time, I don't want to make excuses for them anymore. Apologize to Noonyuo now and post online that it was all fake, and I might still forgive you. Hearing the commanding tone on the other end of the phone, my heart actually ached for a moment. Seeing that I didn't respond, Gu Beichuan softened his tone, but it still carried an air of authority. Ji Yun, Noonyuo is just in a bad mood. We grew up together. You know I can't just leave her alone. If I had heard this before, I would have definitely had a big argument with Gu Beichuan, for no other reason than that Su Noonyuo had a boyfriend. It's just that her boyfriend wasn't from a prominent family in the capital like the Su and Gu families, and Su Noonyuo had never admitted this in front of Gu Beichuan. Now, hearing Gu Beichuan say this, I feel an unusual sense of calm inside. Yes, I know, even if Su Noonyuo has a boyfriend, she still needs your company. There was a moment of silence from Gu Beichuan on the other end of the phone, followed by a cold tone as he spoke. I didn't want to listen to his self-righteous lecturing and threats, so I cut him off. So, as you wish, let's get a divorce. The other end of the line fell silent for a few seconds before the man's indifferent voice came through. Are you really sure you want to divorce me? Divorce? I'm not joking with you. A scoff came from Gu Beichuan's end. He seemed to think that I, the wife who had always trailed behind him, desperately waiting for him to turn back, would never actually bring up divorce. I didn't realize you were capable of playing hard to get, but I'm not falling for it. Since you brought it up, let's get a divorce, just don't regret it. As the call ended, I stared at the screen that went from bright to dark, lost in thought. Immediately after, Gu's mother's call came through. Xiaoyun, how could you do this? That little girl Nuonuo. She just admires our Beichuan too much. How old is she? She's still an innocent child, spoiled by the Su family for so long, a bit immature, that's why she caused such a mess. But even though Nuonuo is a bit willful, as her older sister, how could you embarrass her like this? Hurry up and delete that Weibo post, then go back to the old house with Beichuan, bringing some gifts, apologize to Nuonuo, and post a statement online or something. Nuonuo won't make things difficult for you, and this matter will be over. Listening to Mrs. Gu's words, I was so angry I almost laughed out loud back. When I first got engaged to Gu Beichuan, Mrs. Gu treated me like the apple of her eye. Whenever I visited the Gu family, even if the tea had cooled just a little, she would rush to replace it with a fresh cup. But now, she can so easily expect me to swallow all my grievances. Is it that people's hearts change so easily? Not necessarily. Aunt Gu Beichuan and I are about to get divorced. I'm telling the truth and don't feel there's anything I need to apologize for. Besides, I don't know why Su Nuonuo calls me sister. What era is this? It doesn't seem like concubines are in fashion anymore. With that, I hung up the phone and promptly blocked Gu's mother. I stared at my phone, thinking it still wasn't enough. The online situation had caused a huge uproar. Even though Gu Beichuan and Su Nuonuo used the influence of the Gu and Su families to forcibly suppress the heat, the results were still far from satisfactory. This also caused Gu Beichuan and Su Nuonuo's European trip to end early. After getting the news from a mutual friend, I gave Gu Beichuan a call. It took a long time before Gu Beichuan answered the phone. Realized your mistake, get back here and apologize to Nuonuo. I just found it amusing and ignored Gu Beichuan's self-righteousness. Tomorrow at 9, the Civil Affairs Bureau. A scoffing reply came quickly from the other side. I'm accompanying Nuonuo back to the Su family tomorrow to clean up the mess you caused. I don't have time, even though I had already given up on Gu Beichuan. His attitude that I should naturally step aside for Su Nuonuo still left me feeling a heavy ache in my chest. Up to you, I'll wait until 10 o'clock. If you don't come, I'll file for divorce. I hope you really have the guts to go through with the divorce and don't come back crying and begging me. Gu Beichuan quickly hung up the phone, listening to the busy tone on the other end. A wave of confusion washed over me. In the beginning, Gu Beichuan and I truly lived a sweet and harmonious life, but as we went through more and more experiences, I gradually discovered the inherent flaws in his character: cold, unfaithful, self-righteous. Time ultimately changed everything. Early the next morning, I waited at the entrance of the Civil Affairs Bureau for Gu Beichuan to arrive. Half an hour, 1 hour, 2 hours, until the scorching sun rose directly overhead at noon. I realized Gu Beichuan had no intention of coming. I wiped the sweat from my brow and turned to contact my family, whom I hadn't spoken to in a long time. The moment the call connected, something seemed to flash by in my surroundings. Dad. Before I could say anything, my father's voice came through the phone, clear and firm. If you regret it, just come back. Your mom and I will always be here for you. Come home for dinner tonight. I'll ask Aunt Wang to make your favorite sweet and sour pork ribs. Hearing this, my nose tingled with emotion. I rubbed it before replying in a muffled voice, Dad, could you find me a lawyer who specializes in divorce cases? When my father heard me say this, he grumbled a few words at me, but then immediately sent me a business card. I added the lawyer as a friend and briefly explained my situation to him. The lawyer said the matter was a bit complicated and suggested it would be best to meet in person when we had time. After thinking it over, I scheduled the meeting for 3 days later. Just as I finished confirming with the lawyer, an annoying voice sounded from behind me. Oh my, sister-in-law, how are you here? The person who arrived was Gu Beichuan's good friend Xia Jing. When we first got together, he had often covered for Gu Beichuan and Su Nuonuo. After I caught them once, our relationship became very strained. Once, when he was drunk, he even said right in front of me that Gu Beichuan and Su Nuonuo should be together forever. At that time, Gu Beichuan didn't care about me at all. With a smile at the corner of his eyes, he tried to brush everything off with a casual, "He's drunk." "We had a huge fight that time," he blurted out. "Look at yourself now. What's the difference between you and a shrew? Can't you learn a bit of Nuonuo's innocence and kindness?" His explanation was that he spoke out of turn after drinking, but I believe more in the saying that wine reveals the truth. "Need something, our relationship really isn't that great. I don't think we're anywhere near close enough to chat casually on the street." With one arm around a beautiful woman with a voluptuous figure, he looked at me with a grin. "Why didn't sister-in-law go back to the Gu family with brother Gu today?" Without looking up, I replied slowly, "Waiting for him to come and get a divorce." Xia Jing's movements froze, then she stared at me as if in disbelief, still forcing a laugh on her face. "That can't be, sis-in-law. You, brother Gu and Su Nuonuo are just ordinary friends. You're being a bit too extreme." I nodded, not wanting to say more to him. "Then I wish you many such ordinary friends among the people you love in the future." Xia Jing's face stiffened, but I paid him no mind and simply opened the car door. The cool air inside instantly soothed the irritation in my heart. There were several unread messages on my phone, all from group chats created by friends who were once very close to me. Gu Beichuan and Su Nuonuo returned to the Gu family hand in hand. In the photo, Su Nuonuo smiled serenely, while Gu Beichuan lowered his head with a faint smile, gazing at the woman's hair. Well, Gu Beichuan and I entered into a marriage of convenience between wealthy families, but surprisingly, we got along quite well. Over time, I even genuinely fell in love with Gu Beichuan. When the Gu family's capital chain broke, I didn't hesitate to fill the gap for them. Back then, Gu Beichuan held me in his arms, his eyes filled with emotion and grand ambitions. He said he would make the Gu family bigger and stronger, and he would make me the envy of everyone as Mrs. Gu. Back then, Mr. and Mrs. Gu treated me with great gentleness. When my brother warned me that the Gu family might have sinister ambitions, I dismissed it with disdain. But now, when I lost the protection of my parents, when they discovered I had fallen in love with Gu Beichuan, my life turned upside down. Gu Beichuan came home later and later. His social engagements grew more frequent, and rumors of his affairs kept reaching my ears. Mr. and Mrs. Gu looked at me with cold eyes, and after Su Nuonuo returned, they didn't even spare me a kind glance. Suddenly, my phone buzzed. It was Gu Beichuan. "Noa has a fever. Let's talk about the divorce tomorrow." I thought of the photo of Gu Beichuan and Su Nuonuo, who looked like a perfect couple, and felt nothing but irony. There was a time when I feared that all the happiness I thought I had was shrouded beneath this illusion. Now that I have seen Gu Beichuan's true colors, I no longer bother to pretend with him and drove straight back to the G residence. After the Gu family's capital chain broke, the G family keenly sensed something was wrong and withdrew in time. If I hadn't been blinded by so-called love back then, pouring all my assets into Gu Beichuan, the G family might have climbed even higher today. I returned early, but the entire family was gathered, sitting neatly on the sofa, waiting for me. Seeing me return, my mother's eyes instantly reddened. After hearing from me the whole story between me and Gu Beichuan, Father G slammed the table fiercely. "That Gu family brat has gone too far in bullying us." My brother calmed Father down, then turned to look at me. "Xiaoyun, I know you're a thoughtful person. What do you plan to do?" I looked up, my gaze resolute. "I want a divorce, but, before the divorce, I intend to collect some interest from the Gu family. In the 8 years I've been married to him, I've poured in genuine gold and silver, 8 years of youthful adoration, years of forbearance and grievances. Gu Beichuan must compensate me for every single one." With the G family secretly fueling the fire, the matter of Gu Beichuan and Su Nuonuo, which had just been suppressed a while ago, was reignited. I posted the recording of the phone call Gu Beichuan and his mother made to me that day, along with photos of the two of them returning to the Gu family hand in hand. Online, mistress, affair, wealthy family. Each of these was a compelling enough point of interest. In less than half a day, the news spread like wildfire, and the Gu family stock plummeted repeatedly. The Gu family directly posted evidence on their official account that Gu Beichuan and Su Nuonuo had grown up together since childhood. Between the lines, they were accusing me of making a fuss over nothing, while asserting that Gu Beichuan and Su Nuonuo were innocent and merely very close friends. Public opinion on the internet has taken a turn, and quite a few people now believe they are just friends. Some even say, the Gu family is wealthy and powerful. Isn't it normal for a domineering CEO to have a few close female friends? I simply ignore all these comments. I have blocked all of the Gu family members and Gu Beichuan's friends, waiting only for the lawyer to draft the documents so I can officially divorce Gu Beichuan. If it weren't for me back then during the financial crisis, the Gu family wouldn't be where it is today. When I divorce Gu Beichuan, I would rather donate all the interest I deserve to a welfare institution than let him benefit for free. Even though the Gu family's lawyers repeatedly emphasized that it was inappropriate for me to take away 7/10 of the family's assets, I didn't care in the slightest. In the afternoon, I saw a photo of Gu Beichuan and Su Nuonyo strolling along the beach in a small group chat created by a mutual friend. In the photo, the two of them showed no signs of being affected by the public opinion, and Gu Beichuan and Su Nuonyo even wore matching couple rings. I can't help but marvel at their resilience under pressure. All the inner turmoil and hesitation vanished in an instant. Less than 2 minutes after the photo was posted, it was shared online by my once best friend, Song Ling. May everyone who thinks this is friendship have partners with several such friends in the future. The Song family is also a wealthy household, and Song Ling has been at odds with Su Nuonyo since childhood. With most of the Song family's assets overseas, even if the Gu family wanted to cause trouble, they couldn't exert much influence. Thus, she felt emboldened and directly took to the internet to expose this shameless couple. Moreover, the Gu family now has its own troubles to deal with. The lawyer recommended by my father acted quickly, filing a lawsuit against Gu Beichuan in court before public opinion reached its peak. At this moment, Gu Beichuan looked at me in shock, seemingly unable to believe that I, who had always been excessively tolerant of him, would truly be so ruthless this time. That day, the agitated Gu Beichuan suddenly changed his mind just as the car was about to arrive at the Gu residence. To the villa was our new home at the time, but later, Gu Beichuan rarely came back. The driver immediately turned the car around upon receiving the instruction, and before long, the car slowly came to a stop in front of the villa. Gu Beichuan entered the villa, and as he looked at the impeccably clean home, a wave of frustration washed over him. He looked around and finally confirmed that all my belongings in the villa had disappeared. The things he had given me were still scattered here and there in the walk-in closet, clearly showing that the original owner hadn't valued them much. Gu Beichuan felt a suffocating tightness in his chest. He still refused to believe that I was truly going to divorce him. In the beginning, when he started having rumors of affairs, I had also made a fuss, even threatening him with divorce and running away from home. But Gu Beichuan was convinced that I was deeply in love with him. After confirming that I was not in any life-threatening danger, he would simply let me be. He would go on drinking with young models and flirting with his female assistants as usual. In less than a week, I would obediently reappear and back down. Gu Beichuan couldn't understand why I was being so heartless this time. Because of the wedding anniversary. No, from the 3rd year onward, they had never celebrated their wedding anniversary together again. After much thought, Gu Beichuan still attributed the reason to my irrational jealousy. Su Nuonyo was also anxious when she saw the public opinion overwhelmingly leaning against her. As a pampered young lady, she cared about nothing else but 2 things in particular, men and reputation. Now, she hadn't fully secured a man like Gu Beichuan, who excelled in every aspect, yet she was already branded as a homewrecker. And even the Su family was affected, watching the sons and daughters of wealthy families openly and covertly mock her. Su Nuonyo was eager to change all of this. She thought of her boyfriend, who had an extremely low presence. Little did she know, her boyfriend had already been turned by me. No man can accept his girlfriend constantly being surrounded by ambiguous relationships, unless he doesn't care about you, or has ulterior motives, and Su Nuonyo's boyfriend clearly fell into the latter category. Su Nuonyo's boyfriend was the youngest son of a third-rate wealthy family, naturally having no chance of inheriting the family business, unwilling to beg for money from his elder brother and parents every day. He could only set his sights on those wealthy and beautiful heiresses. However, the unrestrained behavior of Su Nuonyo and Gu Beichuan deeply wounded the pride of someone who had been pampered since childhood. Su Nuonyo was secretly looked down upon because she had the Su family and the uncertain Gu family behind her, but he had nothing to back him up. Su Nuonyo's actions over such a long time had made him feel ashamed and unable to hold his head high. As soon as I approached him, He eagerly agreed. The Su family held a press conference, during which Su Nuonuo's engagement was announced. Everyone, the rumors about my daughter and the Gu family's child are completely unfounded. The widely circulated story about their trip to Europe together didn't just involve the two of them. Zhao Zhuo was also part of the group. After Mr. Su finished speaking, he gave a meaningful look to Zhao Zhuo and Su Nuonuo. Su Nuonuo linked arms with Zhao Zhuo, smiling gently, but her tone left no room for doubt. Absolutely. If there are any more rumors and troublemaking in the future, my fiancé and I will definitely take legal action to the end. Zhao Zhuo took the microphone and sneered at the cameras of the reporters below. Everyone, Zhao Zhuo, cannot accept a fiancé who is so indiscreet and full of lies. As soon as these words were spoken, the room fell silent, and then whispers began to rise. Su Nuonuo's face turned deathly pale as she stared at Zhao Zhuo in disbelief. Everything that has been said online is absolutely true. Zhao Zhuo had come prepared. With a wave of his hand, evidence began to play on a loop on the large screen behind him. Before Gu Beichuan and my fiancé traveled to Europe together, my poor fiancé told me she had argued with her family and wanted to go out alone to clear her mind. She even specifically told me not to accompany her. The crowd erupted in an uproar, but Zhao Zhuo's mouth still wouldn't stop. He explained the ins and outs of each piece of evidence with clear logic. Su Nuonuo had never seen such a scene before and was momentarily stunned, rooted to the spot. Su's father, on the other hand, had the intention to intervene, but seeing that his own people couldn't even get close to Zhao Zhuo, he understood the situation all too well. Zhao Zhuo didn't have the ability to pull off something like this. The only one capable of doing so and dead set on ruining Su Nuonuo's reputation was that girl from the Ji family. The commotion over there didn't affect Gu Beichuan and me in the slightest. Su Nuonuo had told Gu Beichuan about her plan, and now he stood tall and proud, waiting only for her success. With new evidence in hand, even if the divorce still went through, I wouldn't get much of the Gu family's assets. Seeing that the time was about right, Gu Beichuan's lawyer stood up unhurriedly. We have new evidence here. After receiving permission, he openly played the video recording of the Su family's press conference. After the video was played, Gu Beichuan's face suddenly changed. He wanted to stand up and stop it but was held back by the people around him. In the end, they could only glare at me resentfully, their eyes seemingly capable of piercing 2 holes through me. After presenting the evidence, I then submitted the proof of how I had done my utmost to fill the financial gap when the Gu family faced a crisis. Soon, the results came out, just as I had expected. Before leaving the courthouse, Gu Beichuan approached me with a dark, menacing expression. Ji Yun, you did this on purpose. As for Gu Beichuan, I no longer have any desire to engage with him whatsoever. Since he said that, I simply nodded, my expression as calm as ever. Think whatever you want, Ji Yun. Gu Beichuan's eyes widened in fury. We were husband and wife at the time. That money was given voluntarily. And now you want to take 70% of the Gu family's assets. Have you lost all your decency? Before I could speak, my brother abruptly pulled me behind him, his dark eyes fixed on Gu Beichuan as he said with a light laugh, Mr. Gu's decency seems to have been left behind in Europe with Miss Su. The sound of camera flashes around him abruptly cut off the words that Gu Beichuan was about to speak. The Gu family's reputation was already in tatters, and he couldn't afford to bring any more trouble upon them, but it seemed even the heavens disapproved of his actions. Before I could even return to the Ji family, the internet was flooded with mockery directed at Gu Beichuan and Su Nuonuo. Especially Gu Beichuan. The speech he made at the courthouse entrance was recorded, and many who had thought I had gone too far suddenly realized that without me, the Gu family would have long ceased to exist. This intensified their mockery of Gu Beichuan, from his initial affair with his childhood sweetheart during marriage to his current reputation as a kept man that didn't live up to the name. It all felt like a massive net, tightly ensnaring Gu Beichuan. Lately, Gu Beichuan had been acting like a madman, not only frequently appearing around the Ji family villa but also constantly changing his phone number to send me messages and make calls non-stop. After hanging up the 20th call, I asked the butler to go out and chase Gu Beichuan, who was loitering at the gate, far away, and to put up a sign at the entrance, Gu Beichuan and dogs are not allowed to enter. After staying at home for a long time, Song Ling and I made plans to go shopping together, with the Ji family and other Wealthy families who have always been at odds with them fanning the flames. The matter between Gu Beichuan and Su Nuonuo still had a bit of heat even after more than 10 days. After finishing shopping with Song Ling, Gu Beichuan was once again blocking the entrance of the Ji family, like a stubborn piece of adhesive that was hard to get rid of. Just as I reached the door, a muffled thunderclap sounded outside, followed by a downpour of heavy rain. I looked up and instructed Aunt Wang Ma. Bring it in, it's pitiful in this heavy rain. A glimmer of light flashed in Gu Beichuan's eyes. Ji Yun knew that all of this was just an act. Deep down, Ji Yun still liked him. As soon as he moved, he saw Wang Ma holding an umbrella and carrying a small, yellow and white puppy out from the grass. After realizing that no one in the Ji residence paid him any attention, Gu Beichuan's face darkened to the point where it couldn't get any blacker. The rain poured down his hair, and in no time at all, he was drenched to the bone. Just as Gu Beichuan was about to leave, a sudden umbrella appeared over his head. Gu Beichuan turned around, expecting to see my eyes filled with heartache and self-blame, his mind already calculating how to handle me. Instead, he was caught off guard by the sight of Su Nuonuo, dressed in a white dress. Nuonuo, what are you doing here? Gu Beichuan's voice was stiff. In front of Su Nuonuo, he had always held a superior position, and Su Nuonuo was more than happy to indulge him. He had never been this disheveled before. Thinking of this, he turned and glared at me, who was playing with the puppy inside the house. Su Nuonuo smiled gently, but her eyes were visibly shattered. I heard from them that Brother Gu was at the Ji family's place, so I thought, with such heavy rain, if... Su Nuonuo paused, then lowered her head, her voice muffled. The rain is so heavy, Brother Gu. Why didn't you even bring an umbrella? If you get sick, what should we do? Gu Beichuan's heart had initially softened, but upon second thought, he quickly grabbed Su Nuonuo. Who are you talking about? Su Nuonuo's expression of distress froze. She had thought Gu Beichuan would feel more pity for her because of her understanding and gentleness, but she never expected. But Su Nuonuo still said, It's Xia Jing and Song Ling. They've been going crazy discussing it in the group chat. Gu Beichuan gritted his teeth. Song Ling again. Song Ling returned with me and witnessed Gu Beichuan's belated, sticky persistence. She immediately shared the scene with her girlfriends. Xia Jing even publicly tagged me in the group chat, spouting nonsense like, a prodigal son's return is more precious than gold. Sister-in-law, just forgive Brother Gu. I scoffed at his words, picked up my phone from the sofa, and snapped a few photos from the second floor of Gu Beichuan and Su Nuonuo putting on their devoted couple act at the Ji family's doorstep. He said he sent it to the group chat. The group instantly fell silent. Even Xia Jing, who had just been speaking highly of Gu Beichuan, felt his face burn with embarrassment, and he couldn't help but hold a bit of resentment toward Gu Beichuan. Here he was, putting in a good word for him, while Gu Beichuan was over there with Su Nuonuo, being affectionate at the Ji family's doorstep. If they didn't care about their reputation, he, Xia Jing, certainly did. After this incident, Gu Beichuan hadn't shown his face around me for several days. The Gu family's business ran into trouble, and when I left, I didn't choose to take Gu family shares but instead took the equivalent amount of money. Both Gu Beichuan and I had prenuptial property notarization, but it's undeniable that Gu Beichuan elevated the Gu Corporation to new heights in just 8 years. What I received was far more than what I had initially invested, but just as I got my hands on the money, the Gu Corporation once again faced a crisis of broken capital chains. Mr. Gu and Gu Beichuan were as anxious as ants on a hot pan, but Mrs. Gu seemed to set her sights on Su Nuonuo. At that time, I was blinded by Gu Beichuan, determined to be with him for the long haul, so I filled the Gu family's financial shortfall all at once. Having tasted the sweetness, Gu's mother had already begun hinting, both overtly and covertly, for Su Nuonuo to help patch up the Gu family's holes. Su Nuonuo clung to Gu Beichuan partly because of his handsome appearance, but more so because he was the heir to the Gu family, the Mr. Gu who could stir up storms in the capital. Besides, even if she had the intention to put on a show of sharing hardships, the assets she held would be a drop in the bucket for the Gu family, let alone the fact that she had no intention of emptying her family's coffers to help them. She wasn't even Gu Beichuan's wife yet. Just look at my example. Eagerly helping the Gu family through their crisis, neither Su Nuonuo nor the Su family were willing to Follow in my footsteps. None of this had anything to do with me. After resting at home for a few days, I threw myself back into the G family business, returning to my previous position, but I never expected to be cornered by Su Nuonuo in the parking lot after work. Need something? Frowning, I looked at the dark circles under Su Nuonuo's eyes. Her face was haggard, and even her gaze had lost its former clarity. Ji Yun, Su Nuonuo rasped. Why, I feel something is off, so I quietly dial my brother's phone. Why do you want to divorce him? Why do you want to take away the Gu family's assets? What gives you the right? Su Nuonuo suddenly glares at me, her whole body trembling with agitation, because without me back then, there would be no Gu family today. I've wasted so much for Gu Beichuan. Did you really think I was a merciful bodhisattva in a temple, here to do charity? I looked at Su Nuonuo, the disdain in my eyes deeply stinging her own. I am a businessman, Miss Su. Weighing the pros and cons and knowing when to step back, these are things I must do. Su Nuonuo clenched her hands tightly at her sides, seemingly unwilling to accept it. Without you, I would be Mrs. Gu, half of everything in the Gu family would be mine. I just found it amusing, crossing my arms as I watched her. Suddenly, Su Nunu lunged at me like a madwoman. I sidestepped slightly and then pinned her to the ground. Ji Yun, Su Nunu, seeing my half-smiling gaze, suddenly remembered that before marrying Gu Beichuan, I had trained in Sanda for 10 years. Soon, the police and my brother arrived. The incident of the police appearing at the Ji residence and me being taken away in a police car became known to the Gu family. Gu Beichuan was so unsettled by the news that he released it without verifying the facts. Now, less than a month after the previous incident, most netizens still had memories of the matter. After much discussion, the official news finally arrived. After the truth came to light, opinions online were divided, but Gu Beichuan understood that Su Nuonuo did not truly love him. She merely wanted to climb the social ladder by attaching herself to the Gu family. After weighing the pros and cons, he once again played the role of a man who had suddenly seen the light and came to me seeking reconciliation. But before he could take much action, the wealthy families that had long been at odds with the Gu family began to join forces to carve up the Gu Corporation, leaving Gu Beichuan with no time to spare. By the time the Gu Corporation officially declared bankruptcy, I had already fully grasped the market trends and once again threw myself into the G family's company. After hearing the two stories above, what are your thoughts? Feel free to share your opinions in the comments section. Looking forward to hearing from you. If you liked this story, don't forget to like it, share it, and subscribe to my channel. See you next time.